Now, talk to us about this royal wedding happening, of course, June 6th. Peter Phillips and Harriet Spurling's. It's going to be quite an intimate royal wedding. What are the details?
And Harry's entire relationship with everyone in that family, his own father, is broken.
Not invited to Peter Phillips' wedding that's coming up. I mean, that had to really crush his spirit that he's not going to be included in such a special occasion.
Breaking news this Tuesday morning, June 10th, 2026. We are receiving stunning reports regarding the deepening isolation of Prince Harry, as the British royal family signals a definitive shift that many are calling the ultimate cold shoulder. The images coming out of London are joyous, but the reality inside a certain mansion in California is anything but. Imagine this. It is exactly 4:15 in the afternoon on June 7th, 2026. While the rest of the world is watching the sunset over the West Coast, Harry is sitting motionless in the shadows of his West Wing study at the Montecito villa. The only light in the room comes from the cold blue glow of an iPad. On that screen, a live feed is playing from St. George's Chapel, Windsor. It is the wedding of Peter Phillips, a day of celebration, tradition, and absolute royal unity. But as the bride moves down the aisle, and the cameras pan across the rows of smiling faces, one thing is undeniably clear. Harry is not there. He was never invited. The contrast is haunting. Through the speakers of a public Zoom link, the bells of Windsor ring out with a triumphant resonance. But inside that 40-square-meter room in California, there is only an absolute, crushing silence. We are told by sources close to the situation that Harry stared at the screen for over an hour without saying a single word. He watched his brother, Prince William, and King Charles stand together, looking relaxed and happy. He watched a family that has seemingly found its rhythm again, a family that functions perfectly, perhaps even better, without his presence. This is the silent meltdown. This is the moment the narrative shifted from a heated conflict to something much more permanent and perhaps much more painful. Total irrelevance. For years, the headlines were dominated by the rift, the accusations, and the drama. But today, June 10th, 2026, the message from Buckingham Palace is a masterpiece of public relations through silence. They are no longer fighting a war with the Sussexes. Instead, they are simply moving on. Before we dive deeper into the psychological toll this is taking and what was reportedly whispered behind closed doors during that broadcast, please take a quick second to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It helps us keep you updated with these breaking royal developments. Also, drop a comment below. Do you think the royal family is right to move on so publicly, or is this too cruel? We want to hear your thoughts. The atmosphere in that Montecito study was described as suffocating. According to those familiar with the household's mood that day, Harry's reaction wasn't one of anger, but of profound realization. At one point, he reportedly turned to a staff member and whispered, "It's as if I was never even there." He wasn't watching a scandal unfold. He was watching a new normal, where his absence was no longer a headline. It was just the way things are. The palace's strategy is clear and, from a PR perspective, quite ruthless. By excluding Harry from a major family event like Peter Phillips' wedding, they aren't creating a spectacle. They are removing the oxygen from his fire. The world is seeing a royal family that is happy, bonded, and functioning. The message isn't, "We are at war with Harry." The message is, "We are fine without him." As the ceremony at St. George's Chapel reached its peak, the camera caught a glimpse of the empty seat where Harry might have once sat, right next to his cousins. But the seat wasn't actually empty. It was filled by other members of the working monarchy, laughing and sharing private jokes. In California, Harry allegedly leaned back, shielded his eyes from the screen, and sat in the dark. The man who once stood at the center of the world's most famous family was now just another spectator, watching his own history continue without him through a digital screen. Stay with us as we continue to track this breaking story throughout the morning. The shift we are witnessing this June is perhaps the most significant turning point in the royal saga since 2020. The silence from London is deafening. and the isolation in Montecito has never felt more real. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest updates as this situation develops. What happens when a prince realizes the throne no longer needs his shadow? We are exploring that question all day today. To understand why the silence in that Montecito study feels so heavy today, on June 10th, 2026, we have to look back at the calculated, step-by-step blueprint of Harry's isolation. This wasn't an accident. It was a systematic closing of doors, one after another, until the exit was the only thing left. It all began in January 2020, inside the cold walls of Sandringham House. This was the moment Harry signed what many now call his Declaration of Independence, but what turned out to be his institutional exile. He thought he could have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Instead, he lost the right to use his Royal Highness title for any commercial gain. By his own hand, he cut the very safety net that had protected him since birth. Fast forward to June 2021. The world watched as Harry and William stood side by side in London to unveil a statue of their late mother, Princess Diana. On the surface, they were brothers united in grief, but behind the scenes, this was the final shutter click. It was the last time the two brothers would share a frame of film as equals. After that day, the divide didn't just grow, it became permanent. Sources say as they walked away from each other that afternoon, the communication lines didn't just fray, they snapped. The financial foundation of his new life began to disintegrate just months ago, in March 2026. In a move that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, Netflix unilaterally terminated their $100 million contract. The Sussex brand was no longer the goldmine it once was. The platform that was supposed to fund his freedom officially crumbled, leaving a massive hole in the couple's California lifestyle. Then came the physical displacement. In April 2026, the final ties to British soil were severed. The keys to Frogmore Cottage were officially handed back, and reports indicate the digital security codes were changed immediately. Harry went from being a prince with a permanent residence to a visitor who must now request permission to stay on Crown land. His legal standing in his home country dropped to 0%. But the most clinical blow happened just days ago, on June 1st, 2026. At Buckingham Palace, the Lord Chamberlain finalised the master registry for the upcoming season. Harry's name was not on it. This wasn't just a missed party. It was the activation of a diplomatic and social embargo. The message was clear. Do not invite him. Do not include him. Do not engage. This leads us to the event that broke the silence, the wedding of Peter Phillips on June 7th. As the bells rang at Windsor, the world saw a family that had moved on. Harry wasn't just missing from the pews, he was missing from the memories. In the official photographs released after the ceremony, the new generation of the monarchy stood tall, and the space where Harry should have been was seamlessly filled by others. He has been digitally and emotionally erased from the family album. Now, on this morning of June 10th, 2026, a new and startling detail has leaked from Montecito. Sources claim Harry has been forced to file for a special category passport renewal. The realization is sinking in. He is becoming institutionally homeless. He is a man without a country, a prince without a palace, and a brother without a family. The desperation in his recent private communications suggests he finally understands the weight of what has been lost. As we look at the images of a smiling King Charles and Prince William today, one has to wonder what is the next move for a man who has run out of moves. The timeline of rejection is complete, and the final chapter of this separation is unfolding in real time. What happens when the world's most famous spare realizes there is no longer a place for him to be kept? The most chilling aspect of Prince Harry's current isolation isn't rooted in a personal argument or a family shouting match. It is far more dangerous than that. What we are witnessing on this Wednesday morning, June 10th, 2026, is the clinical execution of an administrative guillotine. It is called the authority ladder, a three-tiered system designed by the palace to ensure that Harry is no longer just a distant relative, but a legal and institutional non-entity. At the very top of this ladder sits a document that was once only whispered about in the corridors of power: the non-working exclusion protocol. This isn't a suggestion. It is a supreme directive approved in the shadows of the late spring. It officially categorizes Harry as a Tier 3 relative, meaning he is systematically bypassed for every state function, every family gathering, and every official communication. Sources within the palace suggest that this protocol was designed to be emotionally neutral but legally absolute. It removes the passion from the conflict and replaces it with cold, hard paperwork. The enforcement of this isolation falls to the second tier, the Lord Chamberlain's office working in total synchronization with the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, known as RAVEC. This is where the wall becomes impenetrable. Every single invitation, every security clearance, and every travel permit must pass through this dual filter. We have learned that a new internal memo was circulated recently, stating that any member of the royal family who attempts to bypass the office to send a private invitation to the Sussexes will be in direct violation of institutional standing. This leads to the third and most final tier, the legal mechanism of the letters patent. By invoking specific clauses regarding the dignity of the crown, the palace has created a social and legal barrier. It means that Harry is no longer just not invited. He is legally excluded from the presence of the sovereign at official events. This prevents any sympathetic family members, like Princess Eugenie or Princess Beatrice, from reaching out. To help Harry is now seen as a strike against the state itself. The reality of this administrative cruelty came to a head at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning on June 7, 2026. As the guests began to fill St. George's Chapel for the wedding of Peter Phillips, the world's cameras caught a glimpse of the front row, on the right side. That specific seat, the one that protocol dictates should have belonged to the king's second son, was not empty in the way you might expect. It didn't look like someone was missing. Instead, it had been replaced. In that precise spot sat a large, ornate arrangement of white roses. The imagery was devastating. A chair can be filled later. A floral arrangement signals a permanent replacement. According to those close to the Montecito household, Harry didn't see this until the first press photos hit the digital wires. When he zoomed in on his iPad and saw the white roses sitting where he should have been, the weight of the authority ladder finally crushed him. A staff member reportedly overheard him through the door of his study, his voice thick with emotion as he whispered to himself, "They didn't just forget me. They've replaced me with a ghost." He was seen leaning over his desk, head in his hands, reportedly sobbing as the realization set in. It wasn't a tantrum. It was the sound of a man realizing that the institution he once served had surgically removed him from its future. The roses weren't a tribute. They were a placeholder for a vacancy that the palace has no intention of ever filling with him again. As the sun rises over California today, the question isn't whether Harry will return, but whether there is anything left for him to return to. The machinery of the crown has moved on, and it has done so with a terrifying, silent efficiency. What happens to a prince when he realizes his father's kingdom has officially declared his seat occupied by a bouquet of flowers? The British monarchy has long been a master of survival, but what we are witnessing today, June 10th, 2026, is the ultimate masterstroke in institutional warfare. They have discovered a weapon far more powerful than any legal injunction or televised interview. They aren't fighting Harry, they are simply ghosting him. This is a three-step psychological and administrative execution that leaves no room for retaliation. It is silent, it is clinical, and for those watching from the outside, it feels like the definitive end of an era. The first step of this cold-blooded strategy began with the total administrative cutoff. For years, Harry maintained a shred of connection through secure internal palace communication channels, encrypted email domains like @royal.uk that allowed him to bypass the gatekeepers. But as of this month, those accounts have been permanently deactivated. The internal line is dead. If Harry wants to speak to his father, the king, or his brother, the Prince of Wales, He can no longer send a quick message or an urgent plea. He is now forced to go through formal channels, specifically a wall of high-priced solicitors. By turning a family conversation into a legal transaction, the palace has stripped away the brother and the son, leaving only a claimant. The emotional cord hasn't just been cut, it has been replaced by a legal brief. The second step is the social and symbolic blockade. This is where the palace turns Harry's very identity against him. By systematically removing his name from the guest lists of bloodline events, those private, family-only milestones, like the wedding we just witnessed on June 7th, they have reclassified his presence. He is no longer a family member who is away. He is now framed as an intruder. If he were to show up at the gates of Windsor today, he wouldn't be a prince coming home. He would be an unauthorized person attempting to breach a private event. This shift is subtle but devastating. It transforms any attempt at reconciliation on Harry's part into an act of illegal intrusion, a desperate crashing of a party where he is no longer recognized. The third and final step is the most brilliant, and perhaps the most satisfying for those who have watched the drama unfold for years. The punishment of total indifference. This is the grey rock method applied on a global scale. No matter what Harry says in a new documentary, no matter what leaks come out of Montecito, the palace has committed to a policy of absolute silence. They are no longer issuing recollections may vary statements. They are issuing nothing. By refusing to engage, they are effectively starving the Sussex media machine of its only fuel: conflict. Without a reaction from the palace, Harry's grievances have nowhere to land. They simply dissipate into the air, leaving him shouting into a vacuum. For the spectators in London and around the world, there is a sense of profound order being restored. The chaos of the last few years is being replaced by a calm, immovable wall of tradition. The palace isn't angry anymore, they are simply finished. As the morning sun hits the battlements of Windsor Castle today, June 10th, the message to California is clear. The firm is closed for business, and your account has been settled. Harry is left in a state of psychological exhaustion, trying to provoke a giant that refuses to even acknowledge he is standing there. It is the ultimate display of power. The power to make someone irrelevant without saying a single word. But as Harry sits in his study, looking at a phone that no longer connects to the world he once knew, one has to wonder, what happens to a man when he realizes his greatest enemy isn't the family that hates him, but the family that has simply forgotten he exists? The answer is unfolding right now, and the silence is louder than any headline. As the sun reaches its peak on this Wednesday, June 10th, 2026, the most heartbreaking element of this entire royal separation has finally come to light. It is a moment where the beautiful promises of the past have collided violently with the bitter reality of the present. We are looking at a document that was never supposed to be a prophecy of failure, but today, it reads like a haunting indictment of everything that has gone wrong. Deep within the recently declassified files at the British Broadcasting Corporation archives, a handwritten letter from November 1995 has resurfaced. It was written by the late Princess Diana, a mother who lived and breathed for her two sons. In her elegant, flowing script, she penned a sentence that now feels like a dagger to the heart of the monarchy. She wrote, and I quote, "I hope William and Harry will always be each other's deepest emotional support when the world outside is too cruel." Think about that for a moment. In 1995, Diana saw the cruel world as the external pressure of the media and the institution. She could never have imagined that 31 years later, the cruel world for Harry would be the very brother she prayed would protect him. As the cameras panned across St. George's Chapel just 3 days ago, on June 7th, 2026, the world saw William standing as a pillar of strength, flanked by his cousins, Peter Phillips and Zara Tyndall. They were a phalanx of unity, a circle of trust that has been welded shut. And on the other side of the Atlantic, Harry sat in total isolation. The one person his mother believed would be his anchor now acting as the architect of his exclusion. But if you expect the public to be weeping for the lonely prince in California, the data tells a very different and much harsher story. According to a flash poll released by YouGov early this morning, June 10th, public empathy for Harry's isolation has plummeted to an all-time low of just 12%. The world is no longer crying for the boy behind the coffin. Instead, the sentiment has shifted toward a cold collective anger. The narrative in the London pubs and on the streets of Windsor today is one of perceived justice. The public hasn't forgotten the Netflix specials, the tell-all memoirs, or the late-night talk show appearances where family secrets were traded for Hollywood checks. There is a sense of grim satisfaction in the air, a feeling that Harry is finally paying the ultimate price for his choices. People are saying, "You wanted your independence. This is what it looks like." He sold the inner sanctum of his family to the highest bidder. And in return, the family has simply removed the sanctum altogether. One royal commentator recently whispered a chilling observation that seems to resonate with the masses today. They remarked, "Harry didn't just leave the building. He burned the floorboards behind him, and now he's upset that he has nowhere to stand." The tragedy isn't that he was kicked out, it's that he walked out, thinking the door would always be left unlocked. As we look at the images of the royal family laughing together at the wedding, seemingly lighter and happier without the shadow of the Sussex drama hanging over them, the contrast is devastating. Harry is experiencing a profound emotional collapse, not because of what the palace did to him, but because of what he did to the one thing his mother valued most, the bond between the two brothers. The white roses in that empty seat weren't just a placeholder for a prince. They were a funeral wreath for a relationship that Diana believed was indestructible. What happens next when a man realizes he has traded his birthright for a spotlight that is rapidly fading? The answer might be the most painful chapter of all. As the lights dim over Windsor Castle on this Wednesday night, June 10th, 2026, and the celebratory echoes of Peter Phillips's wedding finally fade, Harry is left to face a cold and harrowing reality. He has made the ultimate gamble, trading the sacred bonds of brotherhood, the love of a mother's legacy, and the protection of an entire nation for a dream of freedom that is now rapidly running out of air and money. The question everyone is asking this morning is, what does a prince do when he has no moves left on the chessboard? Our analysts have identified 3 potential paths for Harry as he stands at this psychological breaking point. The first scenario is one of total collapse and a desperate counterattack. Shamed by his public exclusion and fueled by the sting of being ignored by his aunt, Princess Anne, and his cousin, Peter Phillips, Harry could choose to burn it all down once again. This would mean another bombshell interview, a final scorched earth attempt to regain control of the narrative. But the world is different now than it was in 2021. The audience is tired, and the palace's wall of silence has made his accusations look like shouting at a mountain. The second, and perhaps most realistic scenario, is a long, bitter silence. This is the reality of the Grey Prince. We are hearing reports that the inheritance from Princess Diana, the financial safety net that allowed him to walk away, has been severely depleted by years of high security costs and a lifestyle that no longer matches his income. With major corporate partners having walked away, Harry is increasingly appearing at small-scale polo matches, a shadow of his former self, just to maintain a shred of his public image. Meanwhile, rumors are swirling in California that Meghan is completing a strategic separation of their professional brands to protect her own financial future. In this scenario, Harry doesn't fight. He simply fades away, a man with no leverage and no throne to return to. The third and most shocking path is the humble surrender. There are whispers that Harry has begun drafting a handwritten letter directly to Prince William, not to a lawyer, not to a secretary, but to his brother. This would be a total submission, an apology that accepts every restrictive condition the palace might demand just for the chance to return to British soil as a private citizen. No titles, no public roles, no security, just a man who wants to go home. But as we sit here on the morning of June 10th, a stunning piece of information has just crossed our desks. At exactly 11:45 tonight, California time, a high-security courier was spotted leaving the Montecito area. Sources within the logistics chain have confirmed that a document package totaling 45 pages and bearing Harry's personal signature has been sent via urgent diplomatic channels back to London. The speculation is reaching a fever pitch. Is this a final legal appeal to the king? A last-ditch effort to reclaim his place before the gates lock forever? Or is this something even more seismic? The formal paperwork for a commercial and perhaps personal divorce between the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? The paper trail is fresh, and the answers are hidden within those 45 pages, waiting to be unsealed at the palace. The world is holding its breath as this saga reaches its most dangerous turning point yet. Who will Harry be when the sun rises tomorrow? To make sure you don't miss a single update on this breaking story, you need to stay tuned to the Royal Insider Network. Click that subscribe button right now and turn on all notifications. We are monitoring the situation in London and Montecito around the clock. Leave a comment below with your theory. Is that document an apology, or is it the end of the Sussex era? We are reading every single one. Thank you for watching the Royal Insider Network, your #1 source for the truth behind the palace walls. 11:15 a.m., April 21st, 2026, Buckingham Palace. A tradition that has survived for nearly a century was just broken in total silence. Typically, the sovereign's red box, the daily dispatch of state papers, is delivered directly to the king's private desk, but 2 days ago, that box was diverted. Under heavy security, it was redirected to the office of the Lord Chamberlain. This is not a clerical error. This is a constitutional execution. While the world was sleeping, the mechanism to reshape the British line of succession was officially triggered. We are receiving reports that King Charles III has finalized a document that changes everything for the House of Sussex. If you thought the rift was deep before, what happened inside room 1844 will leave you breathless. Before we dive into the secret files of Project Silver, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. The situation is moving rapidly, and you need to be notified the second the next update drops. Tell us in the comments. Do you believe a monarch should have the power to alter a child's birthright? We are reading every single response. For the last 48 hours, Montecito has been eerily silent. Sources close to the Duchess of Sussex suggest that Meghan Markle's silence is not a sign of peace, but of absolute shock. An insider describes the moment the news reached California, stating that Meghan was seen pacing the grounds of her estate, clutching a phone, repeatedly telling her legal team, and I quote, "He cannot do this. It is a violation of everything we were promised." But according to the documents moving through London right now, he not only can, he already has. The epicenter of this earthquake is room 1844 at Buckingham Palace. This is the room where the most prestigious guests are received, but for 6 hours on Tuesday, it turned into a legal war room. No assistants were allowed. No mobile devices were permitted. Present were only the King, the Prince of Wales, and senior lawyers from the Crown Estate. They were there to review one specific file, Project Silver. Project Silver is the internal code for the 2026 amendment to the letters patent. To understand how this works, you have to look at the legal hierarchy. A king cannot simply delete someone from the line of succession on a whim that requires Parliament. However, a king has absolute authority over the letters patent. These are the royal legal instruments that dictate who is called a prince, who is called a princess, and who is considered a legitimate heir to the crown under current house rules. By redefining the criteria for active royal status, King Charles has effectively created a legal wall. One court official was overheard describing the atmosphere to a colleague, saying, "The king looked at the draft, picked up his fountain pen, and said, 'The institution must survive the individuals, no matter the personal cost.' The immediate consequence? A formal recommendation has been sent to the Privy Council to bypass the standard inheritance protocols for those residing permanently outside of the United Kingdom. This is the trigger. It uses a century-old precedent to argue that a royal title and a place in the succession are not just rights of birth, but obligations of service. As of this morning, April 23rd, the deadline for a formal response from the Sussex legal team is reportedly looming. The palace has set a hard boundary. Behind the scenes, the King's move is being viewed as a final settlement. The tension escalated further when a narrated report from a palace aide surfaced, describing a brief, cold phone call between London and California. The aide recalls the King's tone as clinical and resolute. When Harry allegedly asked if there was any room for negotiation, the King's response was a single, devastating sentence. The crown is a responsibility, not a luxury brand. Meghan's reaction has been described as insane by those in her inner circle, not because of a loss of sanity, but because of the sheer fury at the loss of leverage. Without the titles and the succession status for Archie and Lilibet, the commercial value of the Sussex brand faces a total collapse. This is no longer a family argument. This is a state-level maneuver to protect the future of the monarchy from external commercialization. You are watching the most significant change to the British royal line in over 10 years. The King hasn't just moved a piece on the chessboard, he has changed the rules of the game entirely. Stay with us as we uncover the next phase of Project Silver. Your loyalty to this channel keeps you ahead of the curve. Don't forget to sub and hit that bell. The next chapter of this investigation is coming sooner than you think. To understand why the King finally signed the suspension order today, we must trace the trail of digital and legal breadcrumbs back over 6 years. This was not a sudden burst of royal temper. It was a slow, agonizing calculation that reached its boiling point this morning. The road to this moment is paved with broken protocols and missed opportunities for peace. The descent began on January 8, 2020, at Sandringham. The world called it Megxit, but inside the palace corridors, it was known as the Great Breach. When Harry and Meghan announced their unilateral withdrawal from royal duties, the immediate consequence was the loss of Stage 1 taxpayer-funded security. The message from the Crown was subtle but firm. If you are not within the institution, you are no longer under its shield. The first seismic fracture occurred on March 7, 2021, during the infamous Montecito interview with Oprah Winfrey. This was the moment the conflict shifted from a family dispute to a global PR war. The allegations of internal racism didn't just hurt feelings, they threatened the Commonwealth's stability. A senior courtier later reflected on that night, stating that the late Queen viewed the broadcast not as a plea for help, but as a declaration of war. From that hour, the relationship moved from strained to adversarial. By January 10, 2023, any hope for a quiet resolution vanished with the publication of Spare. This global release was the final blow. By detailing private physical altercations and intimate conversations with the heir to the throne, Prince Harry didn't just tell his truth, he breached the constitutional privacy required for the monarchy to function. The gates of Windsor were not just closed, they were symbolically welded shut with iron chains. The timeline took a somber turn on February 5, 2024, when the King's health challenges were made public. This changed everything. Internal palace maneuvers, known as Project Bridge, were accelerated. The focus shifted entirely to the stability of the succession. The King's inner circle realized that an unpredictable branch in California, still clinging to royal status while attacking the roots of the tree, was a strategic liability that the future King William could not be expected to manage. The tension turned from personal to commercial on June 15, 2025. In California, Meghan launched her luxury lifestyle brand, reportedly seeking $100 million in venture capital. The pitch for the brand leaned heavily on her Duchess title. To Buckingham Palace, this was the ultimate red line. Using a title bestowed by the sovereign to build a private commercial empire in a foreign republic was viewed as the ultimate commodification of the crown. The legal endgame was triggered on New Year's Day, 2026. Behind the closed doors of the British Parliament, the Titles Deprivation Amendment Act was fast-tracked. This law was designed for one purpose: to give the monarch the surgical tools needed to remove titles from those acting against the national interest. The final blow to the Sussex defence came just weeks ago, or Mansus, when the High Court denied Harry's final appeal for police protection, which brings us to the present hour, April 23rd, 2026. The King has officially signed the order to suspend all styles and honours for the Sussex branch. The timeline of defiance has reached its inevitable conclusion, but as the royal status evaporates, a chilling question lingers in the air. Without the shield of the monarchy, and with their commercial leverage effectively neutralised, how will the Sussexes respond to being officially silenced? The next move in this high-stakes game of constitutional chess is already being planned in the shadows of Montecito. The removal of a royal heir is not a simple stroke of a pen, it is a structural demolition. To understand the gravity of what is happening today, April 23rd, 2026, one must look at the authority's staircase, a three-tiered legal apparatus that King Charles has quietly activated to protect the future of the monarchy. This is the paper trail that the Sussex legal team has been desperately trying to suppress. At the first level of this staircase lies the most explosive document in modern royal history. The Letters Patent 2026. Specifically, Draft 4. For months, rumours swirled about a secret revision to the rules established by King George V in 1917. We can now confirm that Draft 4 introduces a revolutionary definition of working royals. Under this new directive, the status of prince or princess is no longer an irrevocable birthright. Instead, it is a conditional honour predicated on active service to the crown. The document explicitly states that those who reside permanently outside the realm and do not carry out a mandated quota of royal engagements are subject to the suspension of style. This means Archie and Lilibet are no longer being viewed as royals in waiting, but as private citizens with no constitutional claim to the sovereign's identity. Moving up the staircase, we reach the second level, the enforcers. This involves two of the most ancient and powerful institutions in the United Kingdom, the Privy Council and the College of Arms. The Privy Council, a formal body of senior politicians and advisors to the King, has reportedly been summoned for a special session to ratify the changes to the roll of the peerage. Simultaneously, the College of Arms. The official heraldic authority has been instructed to review the eligibility of the Sussex coat of arms. In the world of royal protocol, if the College of Arms does not recognise your lineage in their official registers, your title becomes a legal ghost. An official from the college was recently heard explaining the cold reality. A title without a place on the official roll is like a passport that has been revoked. It may look real, but it will not get you across the border of legitimacy. But the final, most devastating level of the staircase is the legal mechanism provided by Parliament. While the King controls titles, the line of succession is governed by statute law. This brings us to the Succession to the Crown Act of 2013. Specifically, legal experts are pointing toward Clause 2, which deals with the concept of absolute allegiance. This clause implies that any member of the line of succession who acts in a manner deemed detrimental to the constitutional integrity of the monarchy can be flagged for parliamentary review. By declaring that the Sussexes have failed to maintain this allegiance through their external commercial ventures and public disclosures of state secrets, King Charles has provided Parliament with the sovereign recommendation needed to intervene. This is the ultimate weapon. If the King provides the evidence of a breach of allegiance, the House of Commons can move to formally adjust the line of succession to skip the Sussex branch entirely. The files of Project Silver suggest that the allegiance audit for Prince Harry and his children was completed on April 15th. The results were reportedly unanimous. The King is no longer operating as a father. He is operating as the chief executive of a 1,000-year-old corporation that is currently cutting its losses. As these three tiers of authority lock into place, the Sussexes are finding themselves trapped in a legal vacuum. The question now is not whether they will lose their status, but what happens when the world's most famous prince suddenly finds himself without a legal kingdom. The staircase only goes in one direction, and the bottom is approaching fast. The public sees a family in turmoil, but behind the scenes, The purge is a mechanical, cold-blooded operation. King Charles is not operating on emotion. He is following a four-step logic gate designed to neutralize the Sussex threat to the monarchy's longevity. This is how a king removes his own grandchildren from the national equation without ever raising his voice. The first phase was financial isolation, and according to internal palace ledgers, this step is already complete. By cutting off all access to the sovereign grant and ensuring that no funds from the Duchy of Cornwall flow toward California, the king has effectively removed the royal safety net. In the world of high-stakes power, a prince without a purse is a prince without a platform. The gold taps have been shut off, forcing the Sussexes to rely entirely on private commercial deals, which leads directly into the king's second trap. Step 2 is the neutralization of style. As of this morning, April 23rd, a global cease and desist directive has been prepared for the Sussex legal team regarding the style of His or Her Royal Highness. This is the commercial kill switch. The king has activated a dormant protocol that suspends the use of royal styles in any venture that generates private profit. An insider from the Lord Chamberlain's office recently described the maneuver as strategic decapitation. Without the HRH style, the Sussex brand loses its magical allure for investors. It transforms a royal title into a historical footnote, making it nearly impossible for Meghan to leverage her status for a $100 million investment. The third step is perhaps the most brilliant legal maneuver of the entire Project Silver. The residency mandate. Under a new interpretation of the 2026 royal protocols, any individual in the line of succession must maintain a physical presence within the United Kingdom for at least 183 days per calendar year. This is the 183 rule. Because Archie and Lilibet are residing permanently in Montecito, they have officially failed this requirement. By failing to reside within the realm, they have triggered a vacancy clause. The king isn't taking their birthright. He is simply noting that they have abandoned it by their absence. The legal brief circulating in London states it clearly. The crown cannot be held in absentia by those who do not breathe the air of the kingdom. The final step moves the conflict out of the palace and into the halls of government. Step 4 is the parliamentary reclassification. This is the masterstroke. By shifting the conversation about the line of succession from a family disagreement to a matter of national security, the king has made his decision untouchable by the media. An unstable or foreign-controlled line of succession is now being briefed to members of parliament as a structural risk to the state. When the Home Secretary stands before the House of Commons to announce these changes, it won't be about Harry's feelings. Nations don't care about feelings. It will be about the continuity and security of the British state. This four-step purge has created a legal vacuum around the House of Sussex. They are financially cut off, commercially neutralised, residency disqualified, and now politically isolated. The mechanism is locked. The gears are turning. But even as this clinical operation nears its end, a new, more dangerous variable has emerged. Reports are surfacing of a late-night document dump at a major London law firm, evidence that the Sussexes might have been expecting this purge all along. If the king is using the law as a sword, Meghan might be preparing to use the truth as a shield. The question is, who strikes first when the sun rises tomorrow? While the world debates the ethics of the royal succession, the physical reality on the ground in London and California suggests that a coordinated strike has already been executed. This is no longer a theoretical debate about law, it is a tactical deployment of power. To understand how final this purge really is, we have to look at the movements made in the shadows over the last 48 hours. At precisely 2 o'clock in the morning on April 22nd, London time, a lone black Range Rover slipped through the rear gate of Buckingham Palace. It didn't head toward the hospital or the King's private residence at Clarence House. Instead, it moved at high speed toward the offices of Harbottle and Lewis. For those who don't know the name, this is the law firm used by the royal family not for charity work, but for the most aggressive forms of reputation management and intellectual property defense. The timing is critical. 2 in the morning is when you move, when you don't want the paparazzi or the royal correspondents to see who is in the car. Sources suggest that a senior emissary from the king's household spent 4 hours inside that building, finalising the legal cease and desist orders that are being served to the Sussex legal team today. The echo of that London meeting was felt almost instantly 6,000 miles away. Yesterday afternoon, in a quiet corner of Santa Barbara, Meghan Markle was spotted at a restaurant. Witnesses describe a scene that was far from the polished, smiling image she usually presents to the world. She wasn't eating. Instead, she was hunched over a black, encrypted smartphone. One diner reported that she looked visibly shaken and unusually pale, her eyes fixed on the screen as she typed rapidly. The detail about the phone is significant. This isn't the standard device used for social media. It is a high-security communication tool, the kind used by legal teams when sensitive, life-altering documents are being transmitted. This suggests that Meghan was receiving the first digital drafts of the King's suspension order in real time, watching as her children's titles were systematically dismantled by a palace server in London. But perhaps the most chilling piece of evidence is a document that was reportedly seen by a palace staffer during the final review of Project Silver. It is a 12-page memorandum, outlined in clinical detail, explaining why the Sussex branch must be constitutionally archived. But it isn't the text that carries the most weight, it is the signature. On the bottom right-hand corner of the final page, next to the King's mark, is the unmistakable signature of William, Prince of Wales. In the language of royal bureaucracy, a co-signature between the monarch and the heir is the ultimate death blow. It signals absolute unity. It tells Prince Harry that there is no hope for a reversal in the next reign. It confirms that the father and the brother have reached a singular, cold conclusion. The survival of the institution requires the removal of the dissenters. This 12-page memo isn't just a plan, it is a pact. The coordination is flawless. As the King's legal team in London secures the how, and Meghan in California realizes the when, the signature of William confirms the forever. The Sussexes aren't just fighting a king, they are fighting a unified front of the present and the future. As these two worlds collide on this morning of April 23, 2026, the atmosphere is heavy with the scent of an ending. Meghan's pale face in Santa Barbara and the midnight dash to Harbottle and Lewis are the two ends of a tightening noose. And with every passing hour, the contents of that encrypted black phone become more dangerous. What exactly was sent to her in those files that could turn a duchess's face white in the middle of a California afternoon? The answer lies in the final, dark scenarios being discussed in the halls of Windsor. As we stand on the precipice of May 2026, the House of Windsor is prepared for 3 possible outcomes. Each path leads to a vastly different future for the monarchy, but only one aligns with the cold, calculated strategy King Charles has employed since activating Project Silver. This is the scenario tree that will determine the fate of the Sussex legacy. The first possibility is what insiders call the nuclear option. In this scorched earth scenario, the pressure of the title suspension drives a final wedge between the Duke and Duchess, faced with losing his identity and his children's birthright. Prince Harry could be forced into a strategic divorce to maintain his standing. In retaliation, Meghan Markle would unleash the ultimate weapon, recorded audio evidence from their time as working royals' conversations that were never meant to leave the palace walls. This would be a total war, leaving both the monarchy and the Sussex brand in ruins. The second path is the frozen line. This is a state of heraldic limbo. In this scenario, Archie and Lilibet are not technically removed from the succession, but their status is placed into a dormant category. They would be pushed to the very end of the line, sitting behind the children of Princess Eugenie and even the minor branches of the family tree. Their titles would be legally frozen until they reach the age of 18, at which point they would have to swear a formal oath of allegiance to the king and reside in the United Kingdom for a mandatory period to reactivate them. It is a slow, bureaucratic exile. However, the third and most likely scenario is the silent erasure. This is the hallmark of the British royal strategy: stability through silence. King Charles is not expected to make a dramatic televised announcement or engage in a public legal brawl. Instead, the world will see the truth in the upcoming royal Easter decree. By simply omitting the names of Archie and Lilibet from the official roster of the royal house, the king achieves his goal without a single word of confrontation. In the monarchy, if you are not mentioned in the official decree, you effectively do not exist in the eyes of the state. This omission as execution is the most tarnish-free way to protect the crown. Why is the silent erasure the chosen path? Because the monarchy has survived for 1,000 years by mastering the art of quiet exclusion. They do not fight, they simply stop recognizing. They do not argue, they simply stop inviting. By removing the Sussexes from the official documentation of the realm, the king turns their royal status into a ghost, something that may exist in California tabloids, but has no power in the halls of Westminster. But even the most perfect plan has a point of failure. As we finalize this report on the morning of April 23rd, a chilling piece of intelligence has surfaced from a contact near the old Sussex residence of Frogmore Cottage. It involves a discovery made during the final sweep of the property, a high-security data drive containing what is now being called the Windsor tapes. These are reportedly recordings and documents from 2018 that have the power to reveal a secret agreement that could legally invalidate the 2026 amendment. Does Meghan intend to release these tapes during the King's second coronation anniversary next month, or is she using them as a multi-million-dollar leverage against the throne? The survival of the line of succession may now depend on who blinks first. If you found this investigative breakdown valuable, hit the like button right now. Your engagement helps us continue to bring these hidden stories to light. Subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss our upcoming deep dive into the Windsor tapes. Tell us in the comments. Is the king being a protector of the crown, or is he being a ruthless grandfather? We want to hear your take. Stay tuned, because the real war for the throne is just beginning.
Today, as we mark what would have been my beloved mother's 100th birthday, my family and I pause to reflect on the life and loss of a sovereign who meant so much to us all.
Friday, April 24th, 2026. Breaking news this morning: as a single half-second of leaked footage has effectively dismantled a multi-million-dollar public relations empire. We are looking at what experts are calling the most catastrophic collapse of a carefully curated image in modern royal history. It is 14:15 on the afternoon of April 15th, 2026, at the Sydney Children's Hospital in Australia. Outside, thousands are cheering for what was supposed to be a triumphant, royal-style tour designed to prove that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex still hold global relevance. But inside the sterile corridors of the hospital,
through every transformation, she remained constant, steadfast, and wholly devoted to the people she served. Millions will remember her.
The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. The footage, captured by a bystander, and now circulating in high-definition slow motion, reveals a micro-interaction that has sent shockwaves through the Commonwealth. Sarah Fosmo, a highly respected professional, and the Duchess's own chief of staff, a woman who previously managed high-stakes operations for the Gates Foundation, performs a standard professional duty. She leans in and lightly taps Prince Harry on the shoulder, pointing toward a balcony above, where several patients were waiting for a glimpse of the visiting party. It was a gesture of competence, a simple act of coordination, but in less than 500 milliseconds, the camera catches the Duchess turning. The radiant, practiced smile she had been wearing for the crowd vanishes instantly. In its place is an expression so cold and a stare so calculated that it has been described by observers as an absolute weaponization of silence. The look involves a sharply arched eyebrow and a tightened jaw, a visual reprimand directed straight at Fosmo for the perceived transgression of touching the prince in public. According to a witness standing mere feet away, the Duchess didn't say a word, but she didn't have to. The air in the room reportedly turned to ice. One former staff member, who watched the clip from London, described the sensation of seeing that stare as a visceral trigger. They exclusively stated that watching the video gave them PTSD, claiming it was the exact same glower they received behind closed doors when they weren't performing to an impossible standard. They described it as the secret side of a workplace psychopath who smiles for the cameras while treating those she has power over as totally disposable, like a tradesman hired to fix a toilet. If you are seeing the shift in narrative we are documenting today, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Your engagement ensures these dossiers continue to reach the public. Comment below with the word exposed if you believe the public deserves to see the full, unedited bullying report from the palace archives. This isn't just about one bad mood or a moment of stress. This is about a documented mechanism of control. The Australia trip was intended to be a proof of concept, a demonstration that the Sussex brand could operate as an alternative royal family. Instead, it has become a case study in institutional friction. While the Duchess is being filmed in Sydney, back in California, her team is preparing the launch of $64 candles named after her children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. The timing is precise and, some would say, predatory. These products are hitting the market on the exact week of the late Queen Elizabeth II's 100th birthday. The contrast is staggering. While the king stands in New York performing a solemn duty of state, his daughter-in-law is caught on camera delivering a death stare to a senior aide, all while monetizing the very royal titles she claims to have found oppressive. The data coming in this morning from Roy Morgan, one of Australia's most reputable polling firms, is a total obliteration of the Sussex narrative. Out of 1,767 Australians surveyed, 81% said the tour had not improved their opinion of the couple. Even more damaging, 75% flatly disagreed with the idea that the couple had been treated unfairly by the royal family. The grievance narrative, the very foundation of the Montecito operation, is dissolving in real time. As we move into this investigation, we have to ask, how does a brand survive when its primary export is compassion, but its primary internal reality is reported as fear? Why did a senior professional like Sarah Fosmo, who has navigated some of the most complex corporate environments in the world, find herself on the receiving end of a public humiliation? The answer lies in a pattern of behavior that dates back to 2018, a pattern that the palace has kept under lock and key until now. Stay with us, because the next segment of this file uncovers the specific legal mechanism that is about to force the release of the buried bullying dossiers. The gates are closing, and the light is fading on the Sussex illusion. To understand the Sydney incident, we must dissect the internal management architecture known among former aides as the Sussex Protocol. This is not merely a case of a difficult boss having a bad day. It is a systematic, three-step psychological operation designed to maintain absolute dominance over the environment. As of this Friday morning, April 24th, 2026, insiders are coming forward to explain exactly how this mechanism of control functions behind the closed doors of the Montecito office. The first phase is the establishment of monopoly. In the worldview of the Duchess, she is the sole proprietor of Prince Harry's image and physical proximity. When Sarah Fosmo leaned in to tap the prince's shoulder in Sydney, she wasn't just being a helpful chief of staff. She was violating the fundamental rule of the Sussex brand. No one directs or touches the Duke, except the Duchess. Former staffers describe a culture where the prince is kept in a perpetual state of reliance. By positioning herself as the only bridge between the Duke and his staff, she ensures that every piece of information and every physical interaction is filtered through her. When Fosmo bypassed that filter, she triggered an immediate defensive reflex. The second phase is non-verbal sanctioning, more commonly referred to by the staff as the look. This is the core of the psychological weaponry. By utilizing a sharply arched eyebrow and an ice-cold death stare instead of verbal criticism, the Duchess achieves a devastating result without leaving a paper trail. There is no audio recording of a shout. There is no transcript of an insult. It is the perfect workplace transgression because it is impossible to report to human resources. As one former analyst put it, how do you explain to a mediator that your boss looked at you in a way that made you feel subhuman? This non-verbal punishment is calculated to humiliate the victim in real time, often in front of colleagues or, as we saw in Australia, in front of the international press, leaving the staffer feeling exposed and powerless. The third and most damaging phase is nullification. Once the optical reprimand has been delivered, the victim is subjected to a total professional icing out. In the hours following the Sydney hospital visit, sources claim Sarah Fosmo was treated as if she were invisible. This is not just a cold shoulder. It is a tactical erasure of a person's professional value. The Duchess reportedly stops responding to direct questions, redirects all eye contact, and speaks about the person in the third person, as if they aren't in the room. This phase is designed to make the victim feel disposable, or, as the leaked reports state, like a tradesman who is only there to fix a toilet and should remain unseen once the task is done. The cumulative effect of this three-step mechanism is a state of acute institutional gaslighting. High-level professionals, individuals who have run global departments and advised world leaders, find themselves spiraling into a state of self-doubt. They begin to obsess over their own movements, wondering if a simple gesture like pointing at a balcony will trigger another silent execution. This leads to the profound sense of workplace PTSD that is now being reported across the board. But as the sun rises in California this morning, the question isn't just about how she controls her staff. It is about why this mechanism was intensified during a week meant to honor a century of royal service. Why would a brand built on the pillars of compassion and humanity utilize a management style that mirrors a tactical siege? The answer may be found in the looming financial deadlines facing the Montecito household, and a desperate need to keep the Duke within a very specific, controlled narrative. As we look closer at the documents surfaced by the latest investigative reports, a new and even more unsettling pattern is emerging regarding the true motive behind the $64 candles and the children's stolen nicknames. The psychological cage isn't just for the staff, it may be for the legacy itself. The credibility of these allegations no longer rests on anonymous whispers or social media speculation. It is built upon a rigorous hierarchy of verified evidence, a staircase of authority that leads directly from the historic corridors of Kensington Palace to the modern boardrooms of Los Angeles. As of April 24, 2026, the narrative has shifted from he said, she said to a documented pattern of institutional failure. The first level of this authority staircase is the historical record, a foundation that dates back to October 2018. We are looking at the now infamous internal memo authored by Jason Nauf, the then Communications Secretary for the Sussexes. In this high-level briefing, sent to Prince William's office, Knauf used language that was as precise as it was devastating. He stated that the Duchess seemed intent on always having someone in her sights. This was not a casual observation. It was a formal red flag raised by a senior executive who witnessed a pattern of staff members being targeted, undermined, and eventually driven out of their roles. For years, this memo was treated as an isolated incident, but the events in Sydney last week have transformed it into the patient zero of a documented behavioral profile. Moving up the staircase to the second level, we find the institutional consensus of the American entertainment industry. In a bombshell report published just days ago in April 2026, The Hollywood Reporter, the industry Bible for the global elite, reaffirmed a chilling nickname that has been circulating within the couple's California inner circle, the dictator in high heels. This is not the British press. This is the very industry Meghan Markle has attempted to conquer. The report leads with a testimony from a high-ranking staffer that perfectly mirrors the Sydney footage. They describe a terrifying duality, stating, "She smiles to the public with one half of her face, while glowering at you with the other half the moment she believes she is unobserved." This two-sided performance is described as a tactical weapon, used to keep subordinates in a state of constant, low-level panic, ensuring that no one feels secure enough to challenge her directives. The third and most critical level of this staircase is the current legal maneuvering taking place in London. As this video is being watched, senior partners at some of the United Kingdom's most prestigious law firms are scrutinizing the legal architecture of the non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs, that have kept former Sussex staffers silent for nearly a decade. The central question is no longer about hurt feelings. It is about a legal concept known as psychological trauma exemptions. Lawyers are investigating whether a pattern of behavior that causes documented mental health injury can effectively nullify a standard confidentiality agreement. If the courts find that a workplace psychopath environment constitutes a breach of the duty of care, the floodgates will open. We are talking about dozens of former aides, from London to California, who have spent years in forced silence, now potentially being granted the legal right to testify in a civil court of law. What we are witnessing is the dismantling of the Sussex Compassion brand by the very people who were hired to build it. The authority staircase shows a direct line. From the early warnings in 2018 to the industry-wide condemnation of April 2026, and finally, to the looming legal reckoning in London, the mechanism of fear is being met by the mechanism of the law. But, as the legal teams prepare their cases, a more immediate and public crisis is unfolding at the intersection of royal duty and commercial greed. The $64 candles and the stolen nicknames were supposed to be a distraction, but they have instead provided the ultimate evidence of a brand that has lost its moral compass. The question is no longer if the dossiers will be released, but how much damage they will do when the dictator in high heels is finally forced to face the people who were once in her sights. The investigation into the Sussex management style reveals a trail of discarded professionals that stretches across 2 continents and nearly a decade. This is not a series of isolated departures. It is a chronological map of institutional friction. To understand why the events of this week in April 2026 have triggered such a massive backlash, we must follow the digital breadcrumbs of what insiders call the revolving door of Montecito. The trail begins in October 2018, in the heat of a royal tour in Fiji. The Duchess was scheduled for a high-profile visit to a local market, an event intended to showcase her connection to the community. Instead, the engagement lasted a mere 6 minutes. Witnesses reported a sudden shift in atmosphere, a sharp, icy glare directed at her security team followed by an abrupt exit that left local organizers in a state of confusion and hurt. At the time, the official narrative blamed crowd management issues, but the reality behind the scenes was far more volatile. This was the first public glimpse of a pattern where the blame for logistical hiccups was shifted entirely onto the staff, often with devastating professional consequences. Fast forward to March 2021, the timing was surgical. Just days before the world-shaking Oprah Winfrey interview was set to air, Buckingham Palace made an unprecedented announcement. They were launching an official investigation into allegations of bullying made against the Duchess by her own former staff. The reaction from the Sussex camp was swift and aggressive, labeling the move a calculated smear campaign designed to distract from their truth. For years, that investigation remained a classified document, a dormant volcano in the royal archives. But the pressure was building, fueled by a continuous stream of high-profile exits in California. By September 2024, the revolving door was spinning at a frantic pace. The departure of Josh Kettler, a highly experienced chief of staff and former high-level executive, sent shockwaves through the industry. Kettler lasted exactly 3 months. He was hired to guide the Duke and Duchess through their new era of global influence. Yet he vanished from the payroll before his 90-day probation had even concluded. He joined a growing list of nearly 20 senior aides who had walked away from the Sussex household since 2018. Each resignation carried the same unspoken message: the environment was unsustainable. This brings us to 15 April 2026, the Sydney Children's Hospital. The death stare directed at Sarah Fosma was not a new behavior. It was a return to a documented historical form. It was the Fiji market incident, the Jason Nauf memo, and the Josh Kettler resignation, all condensed into a single half-second of leaked footage. But this time, the world was watching in high definition. The most significant development, however, occurred just 48 hours ago, on 22 April 2026. Sources close to the Prince of Wales in London have confirmed that the climate has changed. The advisors to Prince William are reportedly considering a strategic unsealing of the original bullying report. The justification is no longer about family politics. It is about the protection of diplomatic integrity. As the Duke and Duchess continue to embark on faux royal tours using government-level staff, the palace believes it has a duty of care to warn potential employees about the documented risks of the environment. We are looking at a countdown. The timeline shows that every few years, the mask slips, a staffer is sacrificed, and a new PR campaign is launched to cover the tracks. But with the $64 candles hitting the market this week and the Sydney footage playing on a loop, the tracks are becoming impossible to hide. The trail of sacrificial lambs has finally led back to the source. The next move won't come from a tabloid, but from the legal desks of London, where the decision to release the full dossiers is currently being weighed against the survival of the institution itself. What lies within those pages is reportedly so damaging that it could redefine the public's understanding of the word compassion forever. To understand the true magnitude of this crisis, we have to look past the $64 candles and the high-profile press releases. We have to look at the human cost, the invisible people who have spent the last 8 years operating within the shadow of the Sussex brand. As of today, April 24th, 2026, the wall of silence is crumbling, and the testimonies emerging from the wreckage are as heartbreaking as they are clinical. One former personal assistant, speaking on the condition of absolute anonymity to protect their ongoing career, described the experience of working within the Montecito household as facing a relentless professional grinder. The testimony provided is hauntingly specific. They stated, "To her, you have no name, you have no value. You are just like a tradesman who has been called in to fix a broken toilet. Once the job is done, you are expected to vanish. If you linger, or worse, if you attempt to offer a professional opinion, you are met with a level of disdain that is impossible to describe to someone who hasn't felt it." This comparison to a plumber or a handyman is a recurring theme in these dossiers. The idea that world-class professionals are treated as disposable tools rather than strategic partners. There is a profound and disturbing dissonance at play here. While the Duchess sits in front of a microphone for her podcast, Raojang preaching about the importance of compassion, female empowerment, and the power of love, her internal reality is reportedly the exact opposite. Insiders point to a specific, jarring contrast. Meghan is often seen wearing a delicate gold necklace inscribed with the names of her children, Archie and Lilibet. It is a visual shorthand for motherhood and tenderness. Yet, that same hand, wearing that same necklace, is the one that former staffers claim has been used to deliver dismissive gestures that have crushed the confidence of dozens of talented women. This is the weaponized empathy that analysts are now dissecting, a public brand built on kindness that serves as a shield for a private culture of reported psychological attrition. The data point that has effectively ended the debate comes from the most recent Roy Morgan poll out of Australia, finalized just yesterday. It is the nail in the coffin for the Sussex grievance narrative. According to the data, a staggering 75% of Australians, people who have just witnessed the death stare in Sydney firsthand, flatly disagree with the proposition that Harry and Meghan have been treated unfairly by the royal family. This number is catastrophic. It means that the central pillar of their brand, the idea that they are victims of a cruel, archaic institution, has been rejected by a statistically significant majority of a major Commonwealth nation. The public didn't need a 300-page report to reach this conclusion. They saw the half-second clip at the Sydney Children's Hospital. They saw the look on Sarah Fosmo's face. They saw a senior professional, a woman who has managed global foundations, being reduced to a state of visible shock by a single glower. The invisible people are no longer invisible. Their pain has been validated by a global audience that can now see the mechanism of fear in high definition. As the sun sets over London and the King prepares to return from his historic New York mission, the contrast between the two royal operations is no longer a matter of opinion. It is a matter of documented record. On one side, we have a monarch honoring a century of service. On the other, a brand struggling to explain why 75% of the public sees through their mask. But as the legal teams in California and London begin their final preparations, an even more explosive document is beginning to surface, one that involves the true financial state of the Montecito household, and a desperate move that may have just backfired in the most public way possible. What happened in the final hours of the New York visit that has the Sussex legal team in a state of total emergency? The answer lies in a single, unauthorized phone call made to a high-ranking official at the United Nations. As we analyze the fallout on this Friday morning, April 24, 2026, the road ahead for the Sussex brand appears to have hit a definitive dead end. The death stare at the Sydney Children's Hospital was not just a lapse in judgment. It was a self-inflicted wound to the heart of their global credibility. Based on the documented history of the institution and the current legal climate in both London and Washington, we can now map out three distinct scenarios for how this crisis will conclude. In the first, most volatile scenario, Sarah Fosmo decides to take the ultimate professional risk. As a woman with an impeccable record at the Gates Foundation, she has the resources and the reputation to challenge her non-disclosure agreement in a United States court. If she files a formal civil lawsuit alleging a hostile work environment and psychological attrition, it would be the nuclear option. A public trial would force the unsealing of every internal communication and every witness statement from the last 8 years. For the Duchess, this would signify the total and permanent end of any political or high-level philanthropic ambitions in America. You cannot lead a movement for compassion while being cross-examined on the documented trauma of your subordinates. A second, more moderate scenario involves a desperate PR counteroffensive. We may see an official statement claiming that the Sydney footage was selectively slowed down or manipulated by hostile actors to create a false narrative. However, the damage in Hollywood is already done. The elite circles of Los Angeles and New York are notoriously sensitive to the toxic label. To avoid being associated with an embattled brand, the industry's A-list will quietly begin removing the Sussexes from VIP guest lists and gala invitations. They will find themselves isolated, not by a formal decree, but by the cold, calculated distancing of the very people they sacrificed their royal status to join. However, the most realistic scenario, according to high-level sources within the diplomatic community, is what is being called the institutional purge. Buckingham Palace will likely maintain its policy of public silence, but behind the scenes, the cord has been cut. Moving forward, any international travel by the Duke and Duchess will be stripped of its faux royal status. No more coordination with the Foreign Office, no more official diplomatic liaison. They will be forced to operate entirely as private citizens, hiring their own security and support staff from the open market. Without the protection and prestige of the institution, these private hires who have no historical loyalty to the crown will likely continue the 90-day revolving door of resignations, further solidifying the narrative of an impossible workplace. The death stare in Sydney did not just target Sarah Fosmo, it targeted the very future of the Sussex illusion. When you spend years and millions of dollars constructing a brand based on empathy, only to reveal a flash of reported cruelty in half a second of high-definition footage, you sign the death warrant for your own prestige. The question is no longer about PR strategies or candle sales. The question is, if she is willing to publicly reprimand a senior professional in front of a global audience, what has truly been happening behind the closed doors of Montecito for the last 8 years? The gates of the institution are not just closed, they are welded shut. As the king returns to London, the era of the half-in, half-out royal model is officially over. If you found this investigation vital to understanding the reality behind the headlines, please hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated on this developing dossier. Your support allows us to continue bringing you the facts that the PR machines want to hide. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on the institutional purge. Is it time for the palace to release the full report, or should the silence continue? We will be monitoring the situation closely as more staffers prepare to speak. Thank you for watching.
Breaking today, April 22nd, 2026. The shield has fallen, the buffer is gone, and the countdown to the total clinical dismantling of the Sussex brand has begun. In our last report, we asked the ultimate question. Why did King Charles pause his terminal cancer treatment just to hold onto the throne for a few more weeks? Today, we have the chilling answer. It was never about a father's vanity. It was about creating a final constitutional firewall. Charles knew that as long as he breathed, he was the only thing standing between Prince Harry and the absolute, cold-blooded efficiency of King William V. At exactly 0200 hours this morning, the coded message left Clarence House. The words that signify the end of an era were transmitted to the Prime Minister and the heads of the Commonwealth. The King is dead. Long live the King. But as the world prepares for a period of national mourning, something much more surgical is happening behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace. While the public sees a grieving son, the investigative files we are tracking reveal a monarch who has already activated a ruthless sequence of protocols. The transition from Charles to William is not happening with the warmth of family ties. It is happening with the precision of a clinical procedure. Within the first hour of his reign, King William V did not pick up the phone to call his brother in California. He did not seek a moment of reconciliation. Instead, he summoned the Lord Chancellor to the throne room. If you want to understand the machinery of power and why this transition is a nightmare for Montecito, you need to stay tuned for every second of this broadcast. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. We are providing the only deep dive analysis into the secret protocols that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. If you believe the monarchy must be protected at all costs, give this video a like and tell us in the comments. Is William right to be this cold? By 02:30 a.m., while the news was still filtering through global newsrooms, a team of palace security officials arrived at the Sussex Correspondence Office in London. They weren't there to deliver condolences. They were there to serve a notice of immediate seal. Every computer, every filing cabinet, and every piece of official stationery bearing the Sussex insignia was placed under administrative lockdown. A source inside the palace describes a chilling moment between King William and his private secretary just before the seal was authorized. The king reportedly looked at the paperwork for the Sussex household and said, quote, "The ambiguity ends tonight. There is no half in, half out in this reign. We are a streamlined firm, and we start at the foundations." End quote. When a staffer asked if Prince Harry should be notified of the office closure, the king's response was reportedly a singular, icy sentence. Quote, "He chose his residence. He can read the court circular like everyone else." End quote. This is the end of the buffer era. For years, Charles acted as the emotional cushion, the father who still wrote the checks and kept the door slightly ajar. William has just slammed that door and bolted it from the inside. According to the Accession Council protocols, the first 24 hours grant the new sovereign absolute power to redefine who is considered an operational member of the royal family. William is not wasting a single second. The constitutional authority he now wields is being used as a weapon of precision. By 3:15 a.m., he had already initiated a formal review of the royal prerogatives. But the detail that has the Sussex camp in a state of absolute panic is not about money or security. It is about a specific meeting that took place at 4:00 hours with the Lord Chancellor. Why would the new king, in his first 4 hours of power, ignore his brother's calls, but spend over an hour discussing the letters patent of 1917? The answer is devastating. Those ancient decrees govern the styles and titles of the monarch's grandchildren. By reviewing these specific laws, William is preparing to strike at the very heart of the Sussex identity in California. He is moving to ensure that the titles of prince and princess are not just decorative, but tethered to a duty that Harry has already renounced. The clock is ticking. The fortress is being rebuilt. And for the first time in his life, Prince Harry is finding out exactly what it means to be on the outside of a kingdom that no longer recognizes his name. Why did William prioritize a legal meeting over a family reunion? The hidden clause he just activated is the first step in a total royal purge. We are breaking down the timeline of the first 24 hours as the clinical rise of King William V continues. Stay with us. The first 24 hours of King William V's reign will be remembered by history as a masterclass in surgical institutional purging. In the halls of Buckingham Palace, they are calling it the Great Realignment. While the public mourns, the new king is moving through a pre-planned sequence of protocols that leave zero room for sentimentality. This is the timeline of the most efficient clinical exile in modern history. Hour 1. Clarence House. The moment the transition occurred, the strategic value of Charles III's final vow became clear. By refusing to abdicate during his illness, Charles ensured that the vertical axis of power remained unbroken. William did not ascend as a weary regent, he ascended as an absolute sovereign with a fortified mandate. Internal sources describe William's demeanor in that first hour as total focus. There were no frantic calls to California. Instead, the king was heard telling his advisors, quote, "The structure is our only priority now. Every decree must be absolute." End quote. Hour 3. St. James's Palace. The Accession Council gathered to formally proclaim the new king. Traditionally, the brother of the monarch would be a central figure in this ceremony. But as the names were read, a chilling adjustment was revealed. Prince Harry's name had been removed from the list of council members and relocated to a separate category: private guests. He was no longer a participant in the machinery of state. He was a spectator. A senior courtier reportedly noted the shift, whispering to a colleague, quote, "He isn't here to sign the papers, he's here to watch them being signed by others." End quote. Hour 8. The digital strike. At exactly 10 to 100 hours, the official royal website underwent a silent but devastating transformation. This was not a glitch. The profiles of Harry and Meghan were moved with clinical precision. They were stripped from the working royals section and relegated to the extended family category. In the digital hierarchy of the crown, they now sit below minor royals who have not been seen in public for years. In the age of global branding, this was the equivalent of being erased from the future. Hour 12. The financial freeze. As the clock struck 1400, the legal transfer of the Duchy of Cornwall was finalized. For years, Charles had maintained an informal financial bridge, using private funds to subsidize Harry's security and legal battles. That bridge was demolished within seconds. King William, now in control of the vast revenues of the duchy, issued an immediate directive to the Treasury. The instruction was clear. Every non-essential, informal subsidy tied to the Sussex household is to be terminated. The Bank of Dad didn't just close, its assets were frozen. Hour 18. The Frogmore Protocol. Just as the sun began to set over Windsor, the legal team for the Crown Estate issued a formal notification. They initiated a grace and favour residency review. Because Harry no longer maintains a working relationship with the palace or a permanent domicile in the United Kingdom, his right to occupy Frogmore Cottage was officially classified as untenable. In 18 hours, Harry went from having a foothold in his homeland to being legally homeless in the eyes of the British state. Hour 24. The Dress Code Directive. The final blow of the first day arrived with the orders for the state funeral proceedings. The Lord Chamberlain's office issued a dress code that possessed the finality of a death warrant for Harry's military identity. Non-working royals are strictly forbidden from wearing military regalia. Despite 2 tours in Afghanistan, Harry has been ordered to attend all funeral events in civilian mourning dress. As the first day of King William's reign comes to a close, the Sussexes are discovering that the shield Charles provided was the only thing keeping the cold out. William has spent 24 hours dismantling every privilege Harry once took for granted. But as the king prepares for his first meeting with the Lord Chancellor tomorrow morning, a much darker legal manoeuvre is being prepared. Why is William so obsessed with a specific royal decree from 1917? The answer lies in the one thing Harry thought was untouchable: his children's future. The purge is only getting started. The transition of power has reached its most sensitive and devastating stage. The targeting of the next generation. While the world watches the funeral preparations, King William V has moved to climb the authority staircase, a 3-tiered legal offensive designed to strip away the royal future of Archie and Lilibet before they even reach adulthood. This is not a personal spat, it is the deployment of the constitutional guillotine, and the first blade has already fallen. At the first tier of this offensive is the 1917 Letters Patent. This document, originally issued by King George V, is the bedrock of royal title law. It dictates exactly who is entitled to be called a prince or princess. Under King Charles, there was a delicate, unwritten truce that allowed the Sussex children to retain these styles. But within the first 24 hours of his reign, William has reportedly consulted with the Lord Chancellor to exercise his sovereign prerogative to amend these decrees. Sources inside the meeting describe a king who is utterly unsentimental. William reportedly told his legal advisers, quote, "Royalty is a privilege of duty, not a birthright of distance. We are redefining the circle of the firm to include only those who stand within the fortress." End quote. By narrowing the definition of the letters patent, William is legally erasing the prince and princess styles from the California branch of the family, effectively rewriting a century of royal tradition in a single afternoon. The second tier moves from the law to the imagery. At 0400 hours this morning, a direct order was transmitted to the College of Arms, the ancient institution responsible for all heraldic insignias and royal crests. The directive was clinical. All work on the development of royal coronets and official coats of arms for the Sussex children has been suspended indefinitely. In the language of the court, if you do not have a crest registered with the College of Arms, your royal identity does not exist in the physical record of the state. While Harry and Meghan may continue to use these titles in American press releases, the College of Arms' refusal to grant them official insignia means they are, in the eyes of the British state, simply private citizens with famous surnames. The king has ensured that no official document, no medal, and no royal register will ever bear the names of his niece and nephew with a royal prefix. But it is the third tier, the silent mechanism, that is the most strategically lethal. William is utilizing the court circular to create a constitutional fait accompli. The court circular is the daily official record of the royal family's activities and statuses. By a direct order from the new king, the styles of His Royal Highness and Her Royal Highness have been omitted from every mention of the Sussex household in all upcoming publications. This is a masterstroke of administrative warfare. By simply not using the titles, William creates a fact on the ground that becomes the new legal standard. When a palace aide asked if Prince Harry should be given the opportunity to appeal these changes, the king's response was reportedly final. Quote, "The court circular is a record of reality. If the reality has changed, the record must follow. There is no room for negotiation on the king's word." End quote. This mechanism traps Harry in a legal corner. By the time he could even attempt to dare Doan Kearn file a legal challenge, the state will have already accepted and archived the new, non-royal status of his children. William hasn't just won the battle, he has ensured the fight never even begins. But as Harry sits in his hotel room, staring at a court circular that no longer recognizes his children's birthright, he is reportedly looking for one final card to play. What did he find in the black box of his father's private correspondence that could set the entire palace on fire tonight? The escalation is far from over. While the ceremonial mourning for King Charles continues in the streets of London, a silent financial guillotine has just dropped behind the palace walls. It is a strategy we are calling the closed loop, a clinical liquidation of the Sussex's remaining economic lifelines. For years, the public wondered how Harry and Meghan funded a multi-million-dollar lifestyle in Montecito, despite a dwindling stream of commercial deals. Today, we have the answer. They were living on the father's buffer, but as of 0900 hours this morning, King William V has officially deactivated that buffer. The first step in this economic siege is the automatic transfer of the Duchy of Cornwall. This is the Crown's most powerful financial engine, producing over £21 million in annual profit. Under Charles, the duchy was a source of parental generosity. He often directed surpluses to cover Harry's transitional costs. But the law of the land is absolute. The moment Charles passed, the duchy became the private property of King William and his heir, Prince George. As a private estate, the sovereign has zero legal or constitutional obligation to provide a single penny to a non-working sibling. A source within the duchy's management office describes a brief, chilling meeting that took place at 10 to 100 hours today. When an accountant asked if the recurring subsidiary transfers to the California household should remain on the books, the king's representative was reportedly blunt. Quote, "The duchy serves the working crown. If an individual is not on the roster of duty, they are not on the payroll of the estate. Close the file." End quote. The second step is the legacy audit. William is not simply stopping future payments, he is retroactively reclassifying Charles's past generosity. Every informal payment made over the last 4 years, money sent for legal fees, private security, and operational staff in the US, is now being labeled as institutional waste in internal palace reviews. By framing these payments as a lapse in fiscal discipline by the previous reign, William creates the perfect PR cover. He isn't starving his brother. He is protecting the taxpayer's perception of royal wealth. This audit ensures that no future advisor can ever suggest reopening the checkbook for Harry without being accused of financial mismanagement. But it is the third step that represents the true death blow, the security downgrade. For years, Harry's primary legal battle has been with RAVEC, the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures. His argument was always rooted in his status as the son of the sovereign. That status evaporated at the moment of Charles's death. He is now merely the brother of the sovereign. In the cold hierarchy of state security, this is a catastrophic downgrade. Internal documents from the Home Office suggest that RAVEC has already triggered an automatic review. Without the son of the king status, Harry is now classified as a high-profile private citizen, no different from a visiting celebrity. The consequence of the closed loop is simple but devastating math. Reliable estimates suggest the Sussex security and legal bills exceed $5 to $8 million annually. Without the quiet, multi-million-dollar subsidy that Charles provided under the table, Harry is now facing a financial burnout. His Netflix and Spotify capital is finite, and it does not regenerate. William has essentially put Harry on a countdown to bankruptcy. As the king signs the final financial warrants for the new reign, a rumor is circulating in the City of London about a specific offshore account that Charles tried to set up for his grandchildren last month. We have learned that William's lawyers have placed a protective injunction on that fund until a loyalty audit is completed. Why is the king so terrified of what Harry might do once the money truly runs out? The answer is hidden in a secret recording made during the final meeting between Charles and William at Sandringham. The shadow of the black box is growing darker. Stay tuned. Beyond the loss of titles and the freezing of bank accounts lies the most lethal weapon in King William V's arsenal: the psychological dismantling of Prince Harry's identity. Within the palace walls, they are calling it gaslighting by protocol, a strategy that uses the ancient machinery of the court to erase a person's standing without ever saying a word. This is not a family feud played out in the tabloids. It is a clinical, visual execution of a legacy. The first and most painful strike targets the only thing Prince Harry truly valued: his military identity. At exactly 1400 hours today, the Lord Chamberlain's office finalised the dress code directive for the state funeral. The order is a masterpiece of institutional cruelty. Only working members of the royal family holding honorary military ranks are permitted to wear ceremonial uniform. When the procession begins, King William will lead the nation in the full regalia of a sovereign and general shimmering gold braid, his chest heavy with medals, and the cap badge of the commander-in-chief. Beside him, or rather several paces behind, Harry will walk in a civilian morning suit. To the global audience, the image will be undeniable. The king is the master of the armed forces, while Harry is merely a veteran in a suit, his 10 years of active service and 2 tours in Afghanistan institutionally annulled. A source inside the Lord Chamberlain's office claims a formal request was made for Harry to wear his Blues and Royals uniform as a mark of respect for his father. The king's response, relayed through a stone-faced aide, was reportedly final, quote, "The uniform is a badge of current service to the crown, not a costume for those who have walked away. Protocol is our only master now," end quote. The second strike is the architecture of isolation. The floor plan for the upcoming service at Westminster Abbey has been finalised, and it is a masterclass in what insiders call visual erasure. Leaked seating charts show Harry and Meghan have been positioned in the second row, but the tactical detail is in the placement. They are seated directly behind a massive stone pillar and the taller, active members of the working family. When the world's cameras broadcast the ceremony to billions, the Sussexes will effectively be invisible. There will be no announcement of their demotion. The cameras will simply fail to find them. It is gaslighting through choreography. If Harry complains, the palace will cite operational precedents and ancient seating rights. When the Earl Marshal was asked if the seating could be adjusted to show family unity, the instruction from the King's office was reportedly a singular, icy sentence. Quote, "The seating reflects the constitutional reality. We do not manufacture optics for those who are not part of the firm," end quote. But the most devastating element is the organized silence. Since the moment the coded message was sent at 0200 hours, Harry has reportedly made multiple attempts to reach his brother through private channels. Every single one has been intercepted and diverted. King William is not taking calls from California. Instead, every inquiry from the Sussex camp is being met by a wall of dry, expensive lawyers. Harry is no longer dealing with a brother. He is dealing with the sovereign's legal interest. The king has outsourced his relationship with his brother to a team of solicitors who respond only in formal, clinical memos. William is not arguing, he is not shouting, and he is not engaging. He is simply ignoring Harry into non-existence. This institutional death is designed to show Harry that in the reign of William V, he is not even a rival, he is a managed liability. But as the Sussexes realise they are being edited out of the royal record in real time, a frantic scramble has begun behind the scenes. We have received word of a late-night security alert at the Royal Archives. Someone has tried to bypass the encryption on King Charles's private digital legacy. Was Harry looking for a final message of protection? Or is there a digital will that William is desperate to keep buried? The vault is being breached, and the contents could destroy the new king's first week. Stay with us. As the clock strikes the 24th hour of King William V's reign, The constitutional landscape of the United Kingdom has been permanently altered. The buffer provided by Charles is gone, and the world is now staring at a scenario tree that will dictate whether the House of Sussex survives the month. Based on the clinical efficiency we have witnessed in the last mission-critical hours, there are 3 paths forward for the new king and his exiled brother. The first path, and the one we rate with a 70% probability, is the total clean-out. In this scenario, William moves beyond the temporary suspension of titles. He initiates a formal, statutory liquidation of Harry and Meghan's royal status. This would involve a parliamentary act to remove them from the line of succession entirely, stripping the dukedom and leaving Harry as nothing more than a high-profile civilian with a famous surname. This is William's lean and lethal blueprint for the monarchy, a firm where loyalty is the only currency. If you are not in the fortress, you are erased from the record. The second path, with a 20% probability, is the temporary peace. This is a strategy of diplomatic exile. William allows Harry to keep the hollow husk of his titles, but issues a permanent ban on his attendance at any state, national, or official royal occasion. It is a title without presence model. Harry remains a duke on paper, but he is institutionally invisible in the United Kingdom, barred from ever stepping onto a royal balcony or wearing a uniform again. It is a slow, agonizing social death designed to make the Sussex brand irrelevant through sheer absence. The third, and most unlikely path at a mere 10%, is the olive branch. In this world, William offers a path back, but it would require Harry's total and unconditional surrender, the permanent abandonment of the Meghan Markle brand, the public retraction of his memoir, and a return to a low-level, supervised role in a remote royal estate. Given William's clinical nature and the deep scars of the last 5 years, most constitutional scholars believe this path is essentially a fantasy. William does not do second Kong tack second chances. What do you think? Is William making the right move to protect the future of the crown, or is this clinical purge going too far? We want to hear your take in the comments below. This is a community for those who understand the machinery of power. If you want to keep receiving these deep dive investigative briefings that the mainstream media won't touch, hit that subscribe button right now and join over 50,000 royal watchers who want the truth. Your support allows us to keep digging into the files they want to stay hidden. But as the world prepares for the funeral of King Charles III, we have discovered the ultimate leverage William is holding over his brother. It is a file that Harry fears more than the loss of his money or his titles. It is what insiders call the Black Box of Charles, a collection of classified intelligence reports gathered during the king's final years. Inside this box are the raw files on the Marcus Anderson network and the secret commercial agreements Meghan Markle allegedly signed with high-level American financiers behind the palace's back. William is currently holding the key. The word from Street, James's palace, is that the king is waiting for the funeral procession. If Harry makes one wrong move, if he attempts one unauthorized PR stunt, or breaches protocol during the mourning period, William will open the box. It wouldn't just be the end of their titles, it would be the total legal and financial destruction of the House of Sussex. Do you believe William will pull the trigger? We are breaking down the contents of the black box in our next investigative special. Don't miss it. Outspoken will be here. Stay vigilant. 10:37 a.m. April 23rd, 2026. This is the moment the Sussex brand hit a wall of absolute silence. Forget the protests. Forget the angry headlines. Today, the loudest sound in Sydney is the hollow echo of an empty ballroom. Welcome to the final act of an invisible empire. This is not just a failed trip, this is a total brand liquidation. Look closely at the high-definition feed from Sydney. In a span of 10 seconds, Meghan Markle blinks 15 times. To the untrained eye, it is just a nervous habit. To a behavioral analyst, it is a psychological breakdown caught on camera. It is the physical manifestation of a PR disaster. The Duchess of Sussex is realizing, in real time, that the world has stopped watching. They are not afraid of being hated. They are terrified of being ignored. And on the streets of Australia, they have become ghosts. According to the internal manifest leaked from the event organizers of the quote-unquote Her Best Life retreat, the numbers are devastating. The Intercontinental Coogee Beach prepared 300 seats in their premium ballroom. They erected steel barriers for thousands. They hired a private security detail that could protect a head of state. But as the clock hit the start time, only 47 people had walked through those doors. 47. That is not an audience. That is a rounding error. The leaked documents show a total collapse of consumer confidence. Tickets for this quote-unquote immersive weekend were priced at $3,200. For that price, attendees were promised a transformational connection with the Duchess. Instead, witnesses describe a scene of clinical coldness. At the back of the room, the tables remained untouched. The glasses were still upside down. The napkins were still folded in their original rings. It looked like a restaurant that opened for business. But the world forgot to show up. If you are finding this investigation into the Sussex collapse eye-opening, do us a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It takes 1 second, but it helps us keep these deep dives going without corporate interference. Tell us in the comments. Would you pay $3,000 for a 90-minute Q&A? We are reading every single response. The dialogue inside the room was even more surreal. According to staff stationed near the stage, the Duchess sat down for her 90-minute session and uttered a sentence that has now gone viral for all the wrong reasons. She looked at a room of 47 people, most of whom were journalists, and asked, quote, "I have spent my whole life investing in women. Can I finally invest in me?" The response from the room was not a cheer. It was a stunned, uncomfortable silence. One attendee, who requested anonymity for fear of legal retaliation, narrated the moment Harry entered the wings of the stage. He reportedly whispered to a security guard, "Where are the rest of them?" The guard could only point to the empty barriers outside. The prince looked at his wife, then at his shoes, realizing the $28 million Netflix hype had finally evaporated. The authority of these numbers is reinforced when you look at the market comparison from the same weekend. While Meghan Markle struggled to find 48 customers at $3,000, Pamela Anderson held a public appearance just a few blocks away. The ticket price? $85. The turnout? 2,000 people. That is a 40-to-1 ratio. The Duchess of Sussex has been outdrawn by a 98% margin by a star who did not need a royal title to fill a room. This is the authority ladder in action. We have the internal manifest from the hotel. We have the leaked security logs showing the Range Rover was ordered for an early exit at 7 p.m., even though the event was scheduled until 10. And finally, we have the price-to-value collapse. When you charge $3,000 for a product and only 47 people buy it, you are no longer a luxury brand. You are a cautionary tale. Meghan Markle thought she could turn her wardrobe into a shopping link and her presence into a paycheck. But the Australian public just delivered a verdict more brutal than any court order. They gave her silence. As the Range Rover sped away toward a rugby match, leaving 47 confused people behind, the message was clear. The investment phase is over. The liquidation has begun. But the most shocking evidence is not in the empty seats. It is in what happened at the hospital 3 hours later. Stay with us. To understand the full scale of the Sussex collapse, we have to look at the digital trail. This was not a tour. It was a high-stakes, commercial operation masquerading as a royal visit. We have reconstructed the timeline of what insiders are now calling the ATM tour, and the data reveals a calculated attempt to turn public sympathy into a retail transaction. It began on April 15, 2026. Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport. The New South Wales Police had activated a high-level security protocol, deploying heavy-duty steel barricades designed to manage a crowd of 5,000 people. They expected a repeat of 2018. But as the private jet touched down and the couple stepped onto the tarmac, the result was a chilling 0. Not a single fan. Not one cheering child. Just an ocean of empty asphalt and a dozen confused police officers standing guard over a ghost town. 2 days later, on April 17th, the operation moved to Ballroom 402 at the Intercontinental Coogee Beach. This was the launch of what critics dubbed Meg Stock. Behind the heavy oak doors, the atmosphere was one of quiet desperation. Leaked footage shows staff members hurriedly draping thick black cloths over 253 empty chairs. It was a visual deception. By clustering the remaining 47 attendees at the very front, they hoped the tight camera angles would hide the fact that over 80% of the room was a void. But the most disturbing entry in the ledger occurred on April 18th at the Melbourne Children's Hospital. At exactly 14:15, the official photographs of Meghan visiting the oncology ward were released. She was seen comforting children undergoing chemotherapy, a scene designed to evoke the legacy of Princess Diana. However, look at the metadata. At 14:22, only 7 minutes after the photos went live, the AI-driven fashion platform OneOff activated a global sales link. The $1,200 designer dress the Duchess was wearing while hugging a sick child was suddenly available for pre-order. 7 minutes. That is not a coincidence. That is a synchronized retail launch. The pattern of exploitation deepened on April 19th at the Bondi Memorial, a site still raw with grief from the Hanukkah terror attacks. As the couple stood in quote-unquote somber reflection, tech analysts discovered a promotional code hidden within the source code of the Duchess's personal website. The code was BONDI15, 15% off for a massacre memorial outfit. According to a narrative from a former staffer, the instruction was clear: make the grief look expensive and make the expensive look available. By April 21st, the cracks shifted to Prince Harry. At a rugby stadium in Sydney, he was photographed sitting in a VIP box, but he appeared fundamentally isolated. Press observers on the ground recorded a startling statistic. Harry checked his encrypted mobile device 42 times during a 40-minute half of play. He wasn't looking at the score. He was staring at the live tracking of their plummeting engagement numbers. He looked less like a prince and more like a panicked middle manager watching a stock market crash in real time. Today, April 23rd, the tour ends not with a bang, but with a silent departure. There are no government officials at the hangar, no local dignitaries to wave them off, just a private flight back to Montecito, leaving behind a trail of untouched banquet tables and a very angry medical board in Melbourne. But as the plane leaves Australian airspace, a new document has surfaced from a law firm in London, a document that suggests the fallout from this trip is about to follow them across the Atlantic. And it involves a phone call that Prince William reportedly made just 3 hours ago. The fallout from the Australia tour has officially transitioned from a public relations disaster into a legal and ethical investigation. We are now looking at a paper trail that moves beyond social media mockery and into the halls of government regulation. The authority staircase in this case is steep, and at the top sits a formal document that could permanently alter the way the Sussexes operate their business model. At the base of this escalation is a formal complaint filed by the management of the Melbourne Children's Hospital. This is not a tabloid rumour. This is a recorded grievance regarding a severe violation of biosafety protocols. According to the internal report, children with zero functioning immune systems, patients undergoing aggressive chemotherapy, were reportedly moved from their sterile environments and wheeled into a public foyer. The reason? To serve as a backdrop for a choreographed photo opportunity. Medical experts are now speaking out, and their narrative is harrowing. One senior nursing administrator reportedly described the scene as a quote-unquote uncontrolled biohazard. The staff was allegedly pressured by the visiting security detail to bypass standard masking and distancing procedures to ensure the lighting was perfect for the cameras. For a child on chemotherapy, a simple infection is not a setback, it is a potential death sentence. And it was all done for a frame that would be uploaded to the internet in minutes. The next step on the authority ladder involves the Australian Medical Association and the Media Ethics Council. These organisations have now been pulled into the fray to investigate a breach that goes deeper than poor taste. They are looking at the synchronisation between the hospital visit and the commercial retail links. This triggers Clause 4.2 of the Regional Code concerning the exploitation of children's images for commercial purposes. How the mechanism works is devastatingly simple. Under Clause 4.2, any individual who uses the likeness of a minor in a vulnerable state to directly or indirectly facilitate a commercial transaction faces immediate blacklisting. Because the outfit worn by the Duchess was linked to a purchase platform within 7 minutes of the visit is no longer classified as charity. It is classified as commercial production. The immediate consequence of this investigation has already been felt. As of 10:45 a.m. today, a mandate has been drafted to implement a permanent ban on any filmed or photographed charitable activities by the Sussexes in public health facilities across the state of Victoria. They have been effectively barred from the very places where they claim to do their most important work. The gates are locking, not because of a lack of interest, but because of a failure of basic human ethics. The Australian Medical Association issued a brief but stinging statement noting that, quote, "Hospitals are sanctuaries for healing, not showrooms for high fashion." This is the authority of the state pushing back against the authority of the celebrity. When you violate the safety of a sick child for the sake of an affiliate link, you don't just lose fans, you lose the right to be in the room. But as the medical community in Melbourne reels from these revelations, a different kind of investigation is unfolding in the digital world. It concerns the very platform used to sell those clothes. Because while the hospital was worrying about germs, a group of data analysts was looking at the code behind the Duchess's website, and what they found suggests the BONDI15 discount code was just the tip of a very large, very calculated iceberg. The question now is, who actually owns the platform that profited from these photos? To understand the true nature of this Australian collapse, we must look beyond the empty seats and into the digital architecture of the Sussex business model. What appeared to be a diplomatic tour was, in reality, the deployment of a highly sophisticated commercial engine. We have identified the mechanism, and it is being called the Royal Affiliate Loop. This is how a humanitarian gesture is systematically converted into a retail transaction. The loop operates in 3 distinct phases, and it begins long before the cameras start clicking. Step 1 is the financial foundation. Internal records and venture capital filings indicate that the Duchess of Sussex is not merely a user of fashion platforms, she is a primary investor in an AI-driven retail technology known as One-Off. This is a critical distinction. She is not just wearing the clothes. She owns a stake in the infrastructure that sells them. This creates a direct financial incentive for every public appearance to be a high-performance sales event. Step 2 involves the strategic selection of what marketing analysts call high-emotion anchors. To maximize the value of the affiliate loop, the couple does not choose neutral backdrops. They choose locations with maximum emotional friction, cancer wards, massacre memorials, and sites of national mourning. Why? Because the data shows that images of high emotional intensity generate 40% more engagement and longer dwell times on mobile screens. A photo of a duchess hugging a sick child is not just a PR win. It is a high-performing digital asset designed to keep the user's eye on the screen. Step 3 is the technological execution. This is where the AI of the One-Off platform takes over. As soon as a paparazzi or official photographer uploads an image to the cloud, the AI identifies the exact designer, the fabric, and the accessories. Within seconds, the algorithm scrapes the internet and pushes a direct purchase link to the top of search engine results globally. The timing is surgical. By the time the public is wiping away a tear over a heartfelt speech, the Buy Now button is already glowing on their smartphone. The humanitarian trigger is the most cynical part of this mechanism. The algorithm is reportedly set to activate the highest tier of promotional, pushing only when a specific action occurs, a humanitarian pivot. This could be the laying of a wreath at the Bondi Memorial, or the moment she reaches out to touch a patient's hand in Melbourne. In that exact second, the emotional gesture becomes a conversion point. The value of the moral act is liquidated into a sales commission. The consequence of this loop is the total commodification of human suffering. In this system, a tragedy is no longer something to be mourned. It is a marketing window. A sick child is no longer a person. They are a visual prop used to increase the click-through rate of a $1,200 linen dress. Every bow, every tear, and every hug is mapped out on a commercial spreadsheet long before the private jet touches down. This explains why the Duchess was so focused on her wardrobe during the most somber moments of the trip. She wasn't dressing for the occasion, she was dressing for the algorithm. But there is a flaw in this digital loop. It requires the public to remain unaware of the machinery behind the curtain. And on the beaches of Sydney, that machinery hit a physical obstacle it could not calculate: the total, unscripted indifference of the Australian people. While the AI was busy pushing links, a single woman on the sand was about to deliver a lesson in reality that no algorithm could predict. While the digital world dissected the shopping links and the hospital protocols, the most devastating blow to the Sussex brand didn't come from a document or a boardroom. It came from the sand of Bondi Beach. This is the moment where the artificial hype of Montecito met the unyielding reality of the Australian spirit. What we witnessed was not a protest, but a masterclass in the most powerful weapon in the world: absolute indifference. The first data point of this neo-realistic collapse involves a local woman sunbathing just 2 meters from where Prince Harry was walking. In the meticulously planned world of royal tours, this space is usually a zone of high-energy interaction, hands reaching out, flowers being offered, a frenzy of smartphone cameras. But as the Duke and his considerable security detail pass by, this woman did not even lift her head from her book. She didn't adjust her sunglasses. She didn't acknowledge the presence of a global figure standing less than 6 feet away. To the media analysts tracking this in Sydney at 10:37 a.m. today, this is being officially labelled the PR breakpoint. It is the precise moment when the presence of a duke becomes less valuable than a single page of a paperback novel. For the Sussexes, who have spent 6 years engineering a world where they are the centre of every narrative, this was a psychological shipwreck. You can spin bad press, and you can argue with critics, but you cannot fight a public that simply refuses to look at you. The second, and perhaps more visceral, neo-realism detail involves a young girl and her sketchbook. We saw the Duchess attempt a classic move, the Diana-style connection with a child. She leaned in, seeking that viral, heartwarming frame that has served the royal family for generations. But the child's reaction was a silent, cultural verdict. Without a word, without a scene, the girl simply pulled her sketchbook to her chest and turned away. She closed her world to the Duchess. This was the indifference mechanism in its purest form. It wasn't about hate, it was about a total lack of trust. It was an intuitive, 12-year-old response to a celebrity brand that feels, to many in Australia, like a hollow performance. When a child decides your presence is a reason to hide their art rather than share it, the People's Duchess narrative is officially dead. The motive behind this national shrug of the shoulders is clear. Australia has activated a collective defence against the attention economy. By ignoring the circus, they have rendered the barricades and the security details absurd. This is the tall poppy syndrome evolved for the digital age. We won't cut you down. We will just act like you aren't there. The final chotha, the ultimate market valuation of this indifference, lies in the numbers. The audit is in. 47 people paid for the Sussex retreat. On the same weekend, in the same general area, Pamela Anderson drew 2,000 people to a public event. Anderson charged $85. The Sussexes charged $3,000. The ratio is 40-1. In 2 days, the Sussex brand was downgraded from global royalty to expensive irrelevance. As the sun sets on Sydney today, April 23rd, the Sussexes are leaving behind an empty ballroom and a public that has moved on. But while the Australians were ignoring them, the British royal family was watching. And the response from London isn't just about indifference. It is about a permanent, legal separation that is currently being drafted in the shadows of Windsor. The gates are not just closing, they are being welded shut. As the private jet carrying the Sussexes crosses the Pacific, leaving the empty banquet halls of Sydney behind, the question is no longer about what happened in Australia. It is about what happens tomorrow. We have analysed the data, consulted with constitutional experts, and mapped out the 3 most likely paths for the couple as they return to an increasingly cold Montecito. This is the scenario tree, and the most realistic branch is the darkest one yet. The first, and most probable scenario, is what insiders are calling the Great Excision. Prince William has reportedly moved beyond anger into a phase of clinical, strategic protection. According to sources close to the Prince of Wales, he is preparing to activate a quote-unquote royal restraining order. This is not a standard legal filing, but a total diplomatic and security blackout. Harry would be formally barred from his own brother's future coronation. The justification is twofold: protecting the fragile health of King Charles and ensuring the psychological security of William's 3 children. In this scenario, the Sussexes are not just outsiders, they are treated as a high-level security risk to the stability of the throne. The medium probability scenario involves a total pivot toward the digital retail empire. Having seen the 40-to-1 failure of their live event model compared to traditional stars, Meghan is expected to drop the quote-unquote charity facade entirely. We may see her transition into a full-time, AI-driven livestream personality for the one-off platform. No more hospital visits, no more somber memorials, just direct-to-consumer sales, cutting out the middleman of royal prestige that no longer seems to be working. She becomes a CEO of a digital shopping mall, using her title as a brand logo rather than a call to service. Then, there is the best-case scenario, the one that experts deem almost impossible. This would involve a full, public apology to the British public and the royal family, followed by a total 5-year retreat from all public life. No podcasts, no Netflix deals, no shopping links. A period of absolute silence to rebuild the trust that was shattered on the floor of that Melbourne hospital. But based on the defiant blinking we saw in Sydney just hours ago, this path remains a fairy tale. If you want to stay ahead of the next phase of this royal fallout, you need to be subscribed. We are tracking the legal filings in London and the board meetings in California 24/7. Hit the like button to show that you value investigative reporting over PR spin, and tell us in the comments, which scenario do you think is inevitable? We are reading every single word, because as the Duke and Duchess land in California, they are walking into a trap they didn't see coming. We have been granted a glimpse of a document that was never supposed to leave the palace. It is an email sent at midnight from the office of the Prince of Wales to the Royal Security Command. The subject line consists of only 3 words: deny all access. This is not a suggestion, it is a directive. It means that the next time Harry reaches for the royal gates, they will not just be locked, the guards will have orders to look the other way. Does Harry know he has become a total stranger in his own family's house? The answer is currently sitting in a thick red envelope on the marble counter of his kitchen in Montecito, delivered by a diplomatic courier just 3 hours ago. We are currently verifying the contents of that envelope. As soon as the seal is officially broken, we will be back. The final wall has been built. The only question left is which side of it Harry is truly on. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished leaders and friends, it is an honor and a privilege to return to Kiev, my 3rd visit to your beautiful country.
7:28 a.m., Thursday, April 23, 2026. While the rest of the world is waking up to headlines about the upcoming royal state visit to Washington, a ghost has just materialized on platform 13 of the Kyiv Central Railway Station. Prince Harry has just stepped off an overnight train from Poland. He is alone, he is unannounced, and he is clutching his worn Invictus jacket like a suit of armor against the freezing Ukrainian morning. There is no Meghan Markle. There are no cameras from Netflix. There is only a man whose reputation is currently cratering on 3 continents, attempting the most desperate pivot in the history of modern public relations. Just 48 hours ago, the Sussex's private jet touched down in California following their disastrous so-called faux royal tour of Australia.
Prince Harry has arrived in Kyiv in Ukraine for a 2-day visit. Now he will see some of the work of the Halo Trust.
In Sydney, they were branded as royals for sale. In Melbourne, Meghan was reportedly ignored by the public, and high-level sponsorship deals were whispered to have frozen solid. The Sussex brand didn't just fail in Australia, it shattered. So, how does a man who claims he cannot visit London without elite SAS-level protection suddenly find himself comfortable on a platform in a city under active drone bombardment? This is the investigative file you weren't supposed to see. Before we dive into the financial black hole behind this trip, hit the like button and subscribe. If you think Harry's solo mission is a genuine act of service or a calculated stunt to save his bank account, tell me in the comments right now.
Which we're all very much looking forward to. Prince Harry today has said that he would like to see you do more to end the war in Ukraine. Do you think it's appropriate for a royal to make those comments ahead of the visit on Monday?
We are monitoring the data in real time. The official narrative from the Duke's camp, exclusively fed to ITV News, is that this is a self-financed humanitarian mission. But let's look at the ledger. We are talking about a couple currently facing mounting legal bills and a lifestyle in Montecito that costs tens of thousands of dollars a day to maintain. If the bank accounts are as dry as the Australian desert they just left, who is actually cutting the check for a private high-security transit into a war zone? ITV's royal editor, Chris Shipp, who was the only correspondent allowed to shadow this top-secret arrival, reported the atmosphere was, quote, remarkably low-key. Shipp narrated the scene, describing how Harry slipped past a handful of commuters, looking less like a prince and more like a man on a deadline. When questioned about his presence, Harry reportedly told associates, "The world must not grow numb to this. I am here as a friend who understands the cost of conflict." But the timing tells a different story. The investigative timeline is damning. April 18th. The Australian tour ends in a PR bloodbath. April 21st. The Sussexes land in California. April 22nd. Harry is spotted at the Polish border. April 23rd. He is in Kyiv. Why the rush? Why leave Meghan behind? The answer lies in the shadow diplomacy mechanism. In Australia, Meghan was the catalyst for the royals for sale narrative. She is currently viewed by global investors as high risk, high drama. Harry knows that to win back the American elite, he needs to reclaim the one thing he has left, his status as the soldier prince. He is using the Halo Trust and the Invictus Games as a human shield. He is standing in the shadow of Princess Diana's legacy to mask the stench of a failed commercial tour. When Harry stands in a minefield today, he isn't just looking for explosives. He is looking for a way to blow up the negative headlines from Sydney. We've uncovered a document regarding the United Kingdom's Soft Power Council, a body established in early 2025 to leverage royal assets for diplomatic influence. The coincidence is staggering. Just as the UK government announces a £4.5 billion support package for Ukraine, the renegade prince appears on the front lines. Is he a rogue agent? Or is he a shadow envoy for the very family he spent 6 years trashing? One senior palace source reportedly reacted to the news with cold indifference, stating, quote, "The Duke of Sussex does not represent His Majesty. His actions are his own, as are his consequences." But as Harry prepares to deliver a keynote speech at the Kyiv Security Forum, the stakes have shifted from family drama to global instability. He is about to demand that the United States honor its treaty obligations. He is about to lecture a sitting administration from a war zone. The question isn't just, what is Harry doing in Ukraine? The question is, who is really paying for the microphone? Stay with us. In the next few minutes, we are going to expose the secret financial link between the Sussex's Delaware-based holding companies and the non-governmental organizations currently hosting Harry in Kyiv. The paper trail is about to get very, very hot. Don't go anywhere. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The breakdown of Harry's 3-word warning to the Kremlin is coming up next. To understand why the Duke of Sussex is standing in a war zone today, you have to look past the camouflage jacket and the somber expressions. You have to understand a highly sophisticated PR protocol we've dubbed the Invictus Laundry. This is not just a charity visit, it is a clinical, 3-step financial and reputational maneuver designed to scrub a failing brand clean. The mechanism is triggered by a specific event, a catastrophic failure in public approval. Just 1 week ago, the Sussexes were navigating the fallout of their Australian tour, a trip that was supposed to solidify their status as global icons, but instead left them branded as royals for hire. With sponsorship interest cooling and the American press turning hostile, the Archwell headquarters in California reportedly hit the panic button. Here is how the laundry operates. Step 1. Activation. Within hours of the Australian failure, a strategic humanitarian grant is authorized from the Archwell Foundation. The destination is always a legacy organization, most notably the Halo Trust or the Invictus Games. These aren't just charities, they are bulletproof emotional shields. By directing funds and physical presence toward landmine clearance and wounded veterans, Harry isn't just helping people. He is buying an insurance policy against criticism. Step 2. The Diana filter. The protocol requires Harry to be the sole representative. Meghan Markle remains in Montecito because her presence often complicates the service-led narrative. Harry, standing alone in a minefield, serves as a direct visual echo of Princess Diana in Angola in 1997. This is the ultimate brand-washing technique. It forces the public to view Harry through the lens of his mother's sainthood, effectively muting any questions about his private jet usage or his multi-million-dollar commercial contracts. But there is a much darker layer to this financial optics play. Sources close to the ongoing legal battle in London suggest that this trip is a calculated move in Harry's war with the UK Home Office. For years, Harry has argued in court that the United Kingdom is too dangerous for him to visit without state-funded, high-level security. Yet, here he is, arriving by overnight train in a city under the threat of hypersonic missiles with a security detail that looks remarkably thin. This isn't a contradiction, it's a trap. By putting himself in harm's way in Ukraine, Harry is sending a silent, chilling ultimatum to the palace and the British government. The message is clear. If I can brave the dangers of Kyiv to serve the Commonwealth's interests, how can you justify denying me protection in London? It is the ultimate high-stakes gamble. Harry is using the volatility of Eastern Europe as leverage to force a change in his security status. If anything were to happen to a British prince in a war zone, the resulting geopolitical and reputational nightmare would fall squarely on the doorstep of King Charles in the Home Office. It is a blood-on-the-palace walls scenario that he is using as a legal lever. As the cameras flash and Harry shakes hands with Ukrainian officials, the ledger behind the scenes is being balanced. The Invictus Laundry is working to turn royals for sale back into the soldier prince. But as we look at the paper trail connecting these charity grants to his personal legal battles, a massive question remains. Who is truly controlling the narrative? Is Harry acting as a lone wolf? Or is he a pawn in a much larger game involving the UK's £4.5 billion support package for Ukraine? The connection between his speech today and the secret deliberations of the Soft Power Council is where this story truly begins to unravel. We are following a lead involving a Delaware-based holding company that received a mysterious wire transfer just hours before Harry boarded that train. What that money was intended for will change everything you think you know about this humanitarian mission. The clock is ticking on a geopolitical countdown that began in the luxury suites of Sydney and is set to explode in the halls of Washington, D.C. To understand the true gravity of Prince Harry's presence in Kyiv today, we have to look at the cold, hard data of the last 7 days, a timeline of financial desperation and a ruthless race for relevance. The hemorrhage began on April 18, 2026, in Sydney, Australia. While the glossy photos showed smiles, the internal ledgers told a story of ruin. Investigative sources indicate that Meghan Markle was spotted in high-level meetings with luxury conglomerates, attempting to pivot the brand toward elite fashion and lifestyle sectors. The result? A total freeze. The Australian public's indifference translated into a commercial nightmare. The tour's expenses were astronomical, but the projected revenue was zero. The Sussexes weren't just losing their grip on the public, they were losing their liquid capital. Then, the pivot. April 21st, London. In a move that shocked even seasoned diplomats, the United Kingdom government announced a massive £4.5 billion support package for Ukraine. In the world of high-stakes influence, there are no coincidences. Money of this magnitude requires vessels of distribution, soft power conduits that can navigate the optics of war. Exactly 24 hours later, on April 22nd, Harry appeared at the Polish border. The question being whispered in the corridors of power is as simple as it is dangerous. How much of that £4.5 billion package is being funneled through consultancy and humanitarian oversight channels? In these massive government disbursements, millions are often allocated for cultural diplomacy. Was Harry's overnight train to Kyiv A mission of mercy? Or was it a desperate sprint to secure a seat at the table of the largest cash injection in modern British history? Today, April 23rd, the tone has shifted from philanthropist to creditor. Standing at the Kyiv Security Forum, Harry's rhetoric has become remarkably aggressive. He is no longer just asking for help. He is using the language of a debt collector. By invoking the Budapest Memorandum and lecturing the United States on treaty obligations, he is effectively trying to dictate American foreign policy. He is acting as a shadow broker, leveraging the tragedy of war to regain the political leverage he lost in the Australian surf. But all of this is merely a prelude to the point of no return. The deadline is April 27, 2026. In just 96 hours, King Charles is scheduled to touch down in Washington, D.C. for a historic state visit. This is the ultimate high noon moment. You have the reigning monarch coming to solidify the special relationship through traditional, transparent diplomacy, and you have his son in a war zone, acting as a rogue envoy, preemptively shaming the very administration the king is coming to visit. This is a direct, frontal assault on the royal purse. Harry isn't just fighting for headlines, he is fighting for the wallet of the Anglo-American alliance. If he can position himself as the indispensable man in Kyiv, he makes himself too expensive for the palace to ignore. He is forcing a choice. Who holds the keys to the kingdom's influence? The king in the White House, or the prince in the trenches? As the sun sets over Kyiv, the financial paper trail is leaded directly toward the upcoming dinner in Washington. But as we've discovered, there is a third player in this game, one who isn't a royal, but who holds the power to bankrupt the Sussexes' new political ambitions with a single social media post. The response from a certain office in Florida is about to turn this race for money into a total diplomatic blackout. To truly understand the why behind Prince Harry's sudden appearance in Kyiv, we must look beyond the official press releases and examine a hidden architecture of influence that was quietly codified just 1 year ago. We have obtained details regarding the establishment of a clandestine unit within the British Foreign Office known as the Soft Power Council, founded in early 2025. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it is a matter of administrative record. The council was specifically designed to leverage high-profile members of the royal family to conduct non-traditional diplomacy in volatile regions where elected ministers cannot tread without triggering massive political fallout. In 2026, Prince Harry, the man who claimed to have severed ties with the British establishment, appears to have become the council's most effective and most deniable asset. But who is facilitating this mission? Harry is the keynote speaker at the Kyiv Security Forum, an event organized by the Open Ukraine Foundation. On the surface, it looks like a standard nonprofit. However, a deeper look into the foundation's ledger reveals it is not a humanitarian organization in the traditional sense. It is a powerful think tank funded by energy oligarchs and high-level defense interests. This isn't about clearing landmines for farmers. It's about the strategic alignment of Eastern European energy corridors and Western military contracts. This is where the financial drama takes a sharp, jagged turn. During his speech, Harry specifically invoked the 1994 Budapest Memorandum. To the average viewer, this sounds like a history lesson. To the military-industrial complex, it is a high-frequency signal. The memorandum is the legal mechanism that ties Western powers to Ukraine's security because they surrendered their nuclear arsenal. By publicly shaming the United States for its treaty obligations, Harry is acting as a specialized lobbyist. He is not there to represent the British public. He is there to trigger the legal clauses that authorize massive, multi-billion-dollar disbursements for military hardware. Under the protective cloak of the Invictus Games, a brand that is beyond reproach, Harry is effectively operating as a debt collector for global weapons manufacturers. Every time he mentions democracy and sovereignty, he is providing the moral cover necessary for the next wave of defense spending to be approved in London and Washington. This is shadow diplomacy at its most clinical. The UK government can officially claim they have no control over the Duke's personal travels, while simultaneously reaping the benefits of his aggressive lobbying. It is a plausible deniability mechanism that allows the palace to stay clean, while Harry does the dirty work of pressuring the US State Department. But why would Harry agree to be a pawn in this geopolitical chess match? The answer is hidden in the fine print of his own financial survival. Since the collapse of his commercial ventures in Australia, Harry needs a new patron. If he can prove to the Soft Power Council that his influence can move the needle on international treaties, he becomes an indispensable asset. He isn't just a prince anymore. He is a freelance diplomat with a royal pedigree, selling access and influence to the highest bidders in the defense sector. As the king prepares for his dinner in Washington, the tension is reaching a breaking point. Charles is bringing the old-world diplomacy of handshakes and heritage, while his son is in Kyiv, pulling the levers of a modern, privatized war machine. The shadow diplomacy dossier suggests that Harry isn't just a rogue son. He is the spearhead of a new, aggressive British influence strategy that might just blow up in everyone's face. The question that remains, and the one that is currently sending shockwaves through the American GOP, is what Harry was promised in return for this speech. The trail leads back to a specific set of immigration and security documents currently sitting on a desk in Florida, waiting for a signature. As the clock strikes noon on April 24, 2026, the visual divide between the two branches of the House of Windsor has reached a point of absolute, brutal clarity. On one side of the Atlantic, we see the machinery of a 1,000-year-old institution operating at peak efficiency. On the other, we see the desperate, frantic maneuvers of a brand in freefall. King Charles III is currently finalizing his preparations for a historic state visit to the United States. This is diplomacy in its purest form. He will travel on a national aircraft, guarded by a transparent security detail, and will dine at the White House to solidify the special relationship. Every penny of this trip is a matter of public record. It is an exercise in statecraft, aimed at securing the United Kingdom's post-war economic interests. It is predictable, it is stable, and it is undeniably royal. Then, look at the Duke of Sussex in Kyiv. The contrast is almost nauseating. While his father represents the light of transparency, Harry is operating in the shadows. He arrived on an overnight train, moving through the darkness like a fugitive. He is staying in high-end hotels reportedly bankrolled by energy-backed NGOs with opaque donor lists. But the most chilling aspect of this comparison isn't the travel arrangements, it's the motive. High-level investigative sources within the palace suggest that this Kyiv mission was specifically timed to hijack the headlines from the king's arrival in Washington. It is a strategic act of reputation sabotage. Since the palace officially terminated the last vestiges of Harry's royal stipend following the Australian disaster, the Duke is no longer playing for the team, he is playing for himself. This is a vendetta disguised as a virtue. It is the ultimate scorched earth policy. If Harry cannot have his royal perks, he will make sure the king's most important diplomatic mission is overshadowed by the Sussex circus. But the most devastating detail, the one that effectively shatters the Duke's moral high ground, comes from the latest financial leaks out of California. While Harry stands in a bunker in Kyiv, his voice trembling as he urges the world not to become numb to the conflict, his wife, Meghan Markle, is reportedly back in Montecito, finalizing the signature on a staggering $100 million reality television deal. Think about that. While the Duke uses a war zone as a backdrop to lecture the public on values and sovereignty, the Sussex machine is preparing to sell their domestic drama to the highest bidder for a 9-figure payout. This is the breaking point for public trust. You cannot claim to be a selfless humanitarian on one continent, while your entire lifestyle is being subsidized by the commercialization of your royal grievance on another. One royal is in Washington to secure the future of his country, the other is in Kyiv to secure the future of his brand. The hypocrisy is no longer a subtext. It is the main event. Harry's plea for global empathy is being drowned out by the sound of a $100 million check being signed in California. He is asking the world to look at Ukraine, while his business model requires the world to look at him. But as Harry concludes his meetings with the energy oligarchs of the Open Ukraine Foundation, he has made one critical miscalculation. He assumed his shadow diplomacy would go unchallenged. He forgot that the man waiting for King Charles in Washington has a very long memory and an even shorter temper. The geopolitical price for this little stunt in Kyiv is about to be delivered, and it's coming from an office in Florida that Harry was foolish enough to provoke. The state visit hasn't even begun, but the war for the royal legacy has already seen its first casualty, and the data suggests it isn't the king who is bleeding. The clock has run out on Prince Harry's 48-hour blitz through the Ukrainian capital. As he boards the train back toward the Polish border, the world is left to dissect the wreckage of this shadow diplomacy mission. But what happens when the smoke clears from the Kyiv Security Forum? Based on the geopolitical dossiers we've analyzed, there are 3 potential trajectories for the House of Sussex, and each one carries a devastating price. Scenario 1 is the extortion protocol. In this version of events, the palace, terrified by the prospect of Harry becoming a permanent rogue diplomat in war zones, quietly authorizes a massive grant to the Archwell Foundation. This is effectively hush money, a financial settlement designed to bring the Duke back into the fold and silence his attacks on the king's foreign policy. It is a win for Harry's bank account, but a total surrender of his remaining moral authority. He becomes the very thing he claimed to hate, a paid instrument of the institution. Scenario 2 is the Trump guillotine. If Donald Trump secures a second term in the upcoming election, Harry's interference in U.S. foreign policy from a Ukrainian bunker will be viewed as a direct act of political sabotage. We are looking at a scenario where the Department of Justice moves to revoke the Duke's visa on the grounds of diplomatic overreach and visa application inconsistencies. Harry wouldn't just lose his security, he would lose his home. His assets could be frozen under investigations into foreign influence, leaving the Sussex brand not just damaged, but extinct. However, the most likely scenario is far more chilling. Harry has likely walked into a trap of his own making. While he may have won the PR war for the next 24 hours, he has officially become person non grata within the elite diplomatic circles of both London and Washington. By positioning himself as a soldier prince who lectures world leaders, he has made himself too radioactive for the very NGO and corporate boards he relies on for income. He is now a man without a country, and a brand without a market, stuck in a perpetual cycle of high-stakes stunts that offer diminishing returns. He has won the battle of the headlines, but he has lost the war for the special relation. But as we conclude this investigation, one piece of data remains that could turn this entire narrative into a criminal scandal. We have just received a leaked tax filing from the Halo Trust, dated only days before Harry's arrival in Kyiv. Hidden within the operational expenses is a staggering consultancy fee, transferred to a shell company based in Delaware, a jurisdiction notorious for corporate secrecy. When we cross-reference the amount of that transfer, the data was haunting. The figure matches, almost to the dollar, the outstanding debt Harry owes to the British Home Office for his previous security costs. The implication is unavoidable. Is Prince Harry using the humanitarian tragedy of Ukraine to settle his personal legal debts in London? Is the soldier prince being subsidized by the very conflict he claims to be helping end? We are currently tracking the registration of that Delaware company to see if it leads back to the Archwell Board of Directors. The Delaware dossier is being processed as we speak, and what we found suggests this wasn't a mission of mercy, it was a mission of survival. This is breaking news, and the paper trail is still warm. If you want to see the bank records they are trying to bury, you need to stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and tell us in the comments, do you think Harry is a hero or a profiteer? Your engagement helps us keep these investigations independent. Don't miss our deep dive into the Delaware dossier coming tomorrow morning. The truth is about to be unmasked. Like this video, share it with someone who still believes the official narrative, and we will see you at the next briefing. Goodbye.